Hey, mama, celebrate, move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. Welcome to another lovely day here at, I don't even fucking know, the United States of America. I'm sure there's some goddamn news. News, dudes, the whole nine. Says, oh shit. Hell yeah. 53 followers? God damn. We are rolling. Unknown user followed 3 days ago. Okay. Did this motherfucker follow and then disappear? Alright, that works. Fine. It still counts as 53. Alright. As Matthew McConaughey would say. Yeah, cool. Alright, well, I think I missed a lot of news, so let's pull up some YouTube. Oh shit. I do believe we've got some press briefings to watch, and I guess we can walk back the news from there. That would probably work for me. Alright, I'm not gonna dox my emails again. Whoops. That was an oopsie poopsie. But okay, this will begin shortly, so we'll just keep an eye on that. Caroline Levitt, the loveliest person in the world, right? You know her, you love her, or something like that. What else we got? I mean, there's drama slop, I guess. There's court stuff to read, so that'll be awesome. Speakers on Trump, Girls Interior Secretary on budget plan. We could do that.
Merkley.
Get up to speed with the whole thing. Let us. And let's get a crossword up. That's what we're all here for, right? Politics can suck with that one. I thought it was whatever. So, we got DeSantis. The Tate brothers are on trial, I think, or have been charged in the UK. So that's a big dub for the world. Yeah. So let's get it started in here, as they say. Come on. Caroline Levitt, I'm going to need you to pick it up, alright? God damn it. Let's go for this, and then judge blocks Trump's tariffs. So this will be big. Federal court blocks Trump from imposing sweeping tariffs under new emergency powers law. All right, that'll be up for the coverage. Then let us. Noisy Parkers? No trucks? Make like a drum and beat it? Idiom analogy? Maybe? So the line the female species is more deadly than the male. No comment. Ditto for us, same. Nope. Me too. Half of an Arnold Palmer iced tea. Iced tea. What is actually the correct way to do that? I have no fucking clue. Sorry, I'm just looking to the side to see if I can find a old thing to watch here. on, fuck me, on the side while we do a crossword, but I don't know. If anyone has slop to recommend, we could do that too while people trickle in. But it seems like all the congressional hearings are quite dull, if you can believe it. I know. I was shocked, but whatever, we'll do this. And then let me pop out the window capture. Sorry, it's while we wait for Caroline Levitt to get on the goddamn stage. What is she doing?
So here on the committee, when we put into
also feel free to help out with the crosswords. I'd really appreciate that.
We specify several things that are
a C,
specific activities
witty remark,
locked into law,
nip,
but many others are in report language. And the report language is designed to give the administration flexibility.
Maybe.
And that creates kind of a dialogue
about
the administration saying, we'd like to not do that and do a little more over here and so on and so forth. But it also means that there's a desire for Congress to have the thinking behind the report language honored and discussed.
Like a GAR? Like the fish?
So a spending plan
is
due to us,
that sounds
and
right.
you all provided one. And a normal spending plan, and I'm just going to show the one for the Geological Service.
Same for me.
This is 6 pages. And if you want to know what we're going to spend on harmful algae blooms, it's in here. If you want to know what we're going to do for Shake Alert,
an
which is a tsunami warning system, very, very important to us on the West Coast.
Maybe.
And so forth, it's all here. So the spending plan is very, very detailed, giving us information both on the things we put into law, but also on the plan as related to the things we put into report language.
Well, I don't know.
When we received your spending plan,
Elders
Geological Service as an example, it has 3 lines. It has a total amount, which would be found in a normal 6-page
Hassan is live.
And 2 sub-accounts that constitute 12% of the spending for the
department. Would lemonade fit in here?
Which means 88% of this spending plan, we have no idea what you're going to do. Now, let me take Shake Alert as that example. In Oregon.
One of you ought to know this. An anarchist, right?
Effort has been extensive. We have earthquakes every year. Someday we'll have a massive one. We had a harbor virtually destroyed in southern Oregon, near the boundary of Oregon and California, from an earthquake that happened in Japan because of the formation of the underwater mountains that channeled that energy right towards that spot across the entire Pacific Ocean.
A club?
So you can imagine if there's a nearby earthquake or a really big one.
All hat, no paddle.
So
probably
our work is kind of at a loss. And all these folks out there and all these individual programs that are in these 6 pages, they don't know if they're getting funding or not.
I don't know.
And yet we're nearing the end of the fiscal year. So how do we get from the 2 sub-accounts that you sent us were ones we had locked into law. So technically you've met the letter of the law.
Glare? I don't know.
But certainly not the spirit of having this dialogue over these various programs. And yet we're trying to prepare our strategy for next year. We always kind of realized if there wasn't a good faith effort to honor the reporting language, we could put every one of these sublines locked into law, but that takes away the flexibility. So it's been a mutually beneficial arrangement. When can we get a spending plan that isn't just the 2 sub-accounts that constitute only 12% of and that was just the USGS as an example.
Help me out here, guys.
Massive amount of every other part of interior, it's the same story. So if the entire, massive spending plan with details versus just, this is the entire department spending plan right here. How do we address this? And what is the holdup for getting a vision for all these individual pieces that were laid out in what we put into the report language?
Comedy with if you talk about the vision, I mean, the one thing coming in, I mean, having spent
I feel so
almost
uncultured
decades
for
in
not
tech
knowing
and
this.
specifically around financial and accounting systems. This federal budgeting process and the tools. I mean, it would be very easy for us to give you that 6-page sheet and
This
just
guy looks fucking dead
take what's
inside.
in there, increase a number a little bit, hand it to you. Everybody's familiar with it, and go. But it is the systems themselves. And the information and how they flow, needs an entire overhaul. And I know we can't get it done now, but certainly we're taking a look at that as we bring in a new team, a new IT team, and trying to say, because we want to have the collaborative process, we want to work with you, we want to do that, but we also want to figure out a way to make sure that we're spending dollars and getting good returns. It's not how much we spend, it's also the results that we get.
There she is.
Last night, the Trump administration faced another example of judicial overreach.
Oh,
Using
yeah?
his full and proper legal authority, President Trump imposed universal tariffs and reciprocal tariffs on Liberation Day to address the extraordinary threat to our national security and economy posed by large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficits. The United States has run a trade deficit of goods every year since 1975. In 2024, our trade deficit in goods exceeded $1 trillion. Everybody agrees this is unacceptable. President Trump is delivering on his promise to fix this problem, and he has taken a long overdue and much needed bold stance for American workers after decades of our manufacturing base being hollowed out. The president's rationale for imposing these powerful tariffs was legally sound and grounded in common sense. President Trump correctly believes that America will function safely long-term if we are unable to scale advanced domestic manufacturing capacity, have our own secure critical supply chains, and our defense industrial base is dependent on foreign adversaries.
I don't know.
3 judges of the U.S. Court of International Trade disagreed and brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him. These judges failed to acknowledge that the President of the United States
Anybody know the Gilmore Girls?
Powers and authority given to him by Congress to protect the United States economy and national security.
My apology.
Congress had created the National Emergency Act to provide the congressional framework to strike down improper IEEPA use. And any questions over whether President Trump improperly imposed these IEEPA tariffs were already adjudicated in Congress following Liberation Day. Congress firmly rejected an effort led by Senator Rand Paul and Democrats to terminate the president's reciprocal tariffs. The courts should have no role here. There is a troubling and dangerous trend.
The courts have no role in the law.
Of course not. The presidential decision-making process. America cannot function if President Trump or any other president for that matter, has their sensitive diplomatic or trade negotiations railroaded by activist judges.
Where you at, brother?
President Trump is in the process of rebalancing America's trading agreements with the entire world, bringing tens of billions of dollars in tariff revenues to our country, and finally ending the United States of America from being ripped off.
Finally, and can I get that as a clip?
Ending the United States of America from being ripped off. These judges are threatening to undermine the credibility of the United States on the world stage. The administration has already threatening to file an emergency motion for a stay pending appeal and an immediate administrative stay to strike down this egregious decision. But ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country. With Congress returning next week, it's critical that Senate Republicans maintain the momentum and quickly pass the One Big Beautiful Bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill will truly make America safe and prosperous. The One Big Beautiful Bill includes the largest border security investment ever. That's why the law enforcement groups are lining up to encourage its swift passage. The National Fraternal Order of Police, the largest police union in the country, just endorsed key provisions of the bill. The FOP president announced their strong support, saying the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is more than legislation. It is a promise kept to the public safety officers across the country and a bold step toward an economy that respects, rewards, and uplifts the people who keep it safe. And the National Border Patrol Council, which represents nearly 20,000 Border Patrol agents, hailed the legislation.
I guess.
The group's president said this legislation provides a once-in-a-generation investment in the border security of our great country and will make America safer. The One Big Beautiful Bill will guarantee we can permanently have the safest, strongest, and most secure immigration system in American history. I also want to take the opportunity to debunk some false claims that have been circulating in the press about this bill. The blatantly wrong claim that the One Big Beautiful Bill increases the deficit is based on the Congressional Budget Office and other scorekeepers who make shoddy assumptions and have historically been terrible at forecasting across Democrat and Republican administrations alike.
Hell no.
For example,
Fuck
just before
off.
Congress enacted the original Trump tax
Fuck
cuts at the end of
off.
2017,
Fuck so far off.
the same CBO projected that growth would average a mere 1.9% over the next 10 years. However, by 2019, actual growth had surged to 3.4%.
Wait, what was the
growth would average a mere 1.9% over the next 10 years. However, by 2019, actual growth had surged to 3.4% once the Trump cuts went into effect.
They were off by
exceeding the CBO forecast by nearly 2 full percentage points. The CBO's latest forecast makes the same anemic growth assumptions as they did in 2017, missing the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
You have to account for $4 trillion worth of deficit. You fucking loser.
The American economy is going to boom like never before after the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Sure, buddy. Oh my God.
The largest middle-class tax cut in history, massive deregulation, and the most aggressive domestic energy exploration ever will fuel small businesses, further boost private investment, increase workers' wages, and supercharge economic growth. The Council of Economic Advisors has factored in the effects of all these pro-growth policies and estimated in their own analysis that growth will average 3% in the long run after the One Big Beautiful Bill
does that cancel out?
Which is nearly double the ridiculous CBO projection.
Does that cancel out $4 trillion?
$4.1 trillion in additional revenue over the next 10 years.
Wow, what a specific number. Yeah, fucking right. What a coincidence, huh? Just 0.1 more than the deficit would be increased. Okay, sure.
Common sense spending reforms contained in the One Big Beautiful Bill and the robust economic growth that will be generated as a result of it, there will be no increase to the deficit. The same analysis from the CBA shows just how this historic package will unleash prosperity and ignite a blue-collar boom across America.
I know who buys this shit.
But if the radical Democrats get their way and the One Big Beautiful Bill does not pass, Americans will face a whopping $4 trillion tax hike. This is unacceptable to President Trump. President Trump will not allow Democrats to massively raise Americans' taxes. Senate Republicans must get this bill passed. Failure is not an option. The American people are counting on Republicans to deliver. In other news, despite all the doomcasting from the media, Americans are growing more and more optimistic about the economy under this president. Consumer confidence surged in May with the biggest monthly jump in 4 years, smashing expectations. According to the release from the Consumer Confidence Index, the increase in confidence was broad-based across all age groups, income groups, and political affiliations. Our country is clearly heading in the right direction under President Trump's bold leadership. For the first time in history of Rasmussen polling, a majority of Americans believe the country is on the right track. It's unsurprising because the president is fulfilling the promises he made to the American people. Here in our new media seat today, we have the editor-in-chief of The Federalist, Molly Hemingway. The Federalist is read by Molly and Sean Davis, and
we really gonna brag about each one of these upticks?
And culture to millions
this is probably
all over the world. Thank you for being here, Molly, and why don't you please kick us off?
Thank you, Caroline.
You fucking losers.
There was an effort to stymie the agenda of Trump through the Russia collusion hoax perpetuated by many people in the media, including some people here or the media outlets they represent, and other Democrats as well. The second Trump administration, to reference what you said at the beginning, seems to be subject to an effort to stymie the agenda using rogue lower court judges.
Federal court judges, babe.
The court could and should do something to bring in these lower court judges. Also, Congress could do something about it. They don't seem terribly interested in it. It also seems there's not much of an actual coordinated effort from this White House to take and tackle this effort from judges, Democrats and other people using these judges
all
to
right,
stymie
buddy.
the agenda. Is there an actual effort by this White House to tackle this issue in a comprehensive way? And if so, what is it?
There is an effort by this administration to tackle these rogue judges and the injunctions and the blockades that we have faced in our broken judicial system.
White House audio guys
in
get
every
fired.
Case. I mean, we have seen time and time again these lower district court judges ruling against this administration and the president's basic executive authority.
As they have the right to
and
do.
This administration is fighting every single one of those battles in court, including already the block that came down from the tariff court, the IEPA court last night. And as on my way out here to the briefing room, I understand that there was another district court judge right here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Caroline, for segueing me into my
I will get to
segment
the
for
heart of
today.
your question, and I'm glad that we are addressing this in the room today, because nationwide injunctions ordered against the first Trump administration, Trump 1.0, account for more than half of the injunctions issued in this country since 1963. And President Trump had more injunctions in
breaking the law, asshole.
February than Joe
so
Biden
simple.
had in 3 years. And let me run through some of these
how many
radical injunctions to paint the picture for the American people at home. These are not just talking points. These are real judges in the court of law trying to block the
so they
president's
are real
power
judges.
and the policies that he was elected to enact.
God.
For example, a court ordered the Trump administration to return already deported terrorist aliens back to the United States. A court has ruled the Trump administration can't even temporarily pause our refugee programs. Courts prohibited the Trump administration from eliminating federal funding for child transgender surgery and mutilation, a practice that the American people overwhelmingly reject. A court also held that the Trump administration could not ban people experiencing gender dysphoria or mental health issues from serving in the military. Ridiculous. Courts prohibited the removal of transgender women from women's prisons, despite potential physical harm to real women in those prisons, biological women. A Northern District of California judge issued an absurd ruling that the president cannot fire people within the executive branch without Congress passing a bill, even though Congress...
You have to fire people for cause. Dipshit.
Congress has expressly authorized the president through the Office of Personnel Management to authorize reductions in force across agencies. A court also ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of already fired employees in several cases. A federal judge blocked the Trump administration from defunding the Department of Education, another signature campaign.
God forbid.
The president has the power to implement. Courts ordered the Trump administration could not eliminate funding for illegal DEI programs, hence the word illegal. These are illegal programs to be...
You can just say it's illegal. That makes it illegal. You're not Congress.
Prohibited the president from issuing any categorical funding freezes. And then another court ordered on top of that the administration makes $2 billion of payments in 36 hours. These are just a few of the ridiculous orders that we have seen from lower district court judges every day, and we hope that the Supreme Court will weigh in and rein them in.
Supreme Court is not on your side.
Some people are calling it a judicial coup.
They literally told you, like, hey, why would you bring this to the Supreme Court? You keep losing.
The implementation of the agenda, but is there going to be anything more than that, or is it just going to let this operation continue, even though it could delay everything for years until the presidency is over?
The administration is operating under the directive given to from the president that we need to comply with the court's orders. He's made that very clear, but we're going to fight them in court, and we're going to win on the merits of these cases.
Right.
We know we are acting within the
What about the guys deported to fucking South Sudan, which they could have done legally? That would have been a legal thing for them to do if they actually followed the process. They had to wait 15 days, and they couldn't do that.
That he's accepted a 60-day truce offer. So can you confirm?
Is that true?
Hamas agreed to a truce?
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place.
That's news to me.
All of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. Further as
I don't necessarily know if that's...
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that becomes the case and this ceasefire goes into effect, you'll hear it directly from myself, the president, or Special Envoy.
Okay, let's see.
On tariffs, Kevin Hassett earlier this morning, he brushed off a legal ruling. This fucker. And he said that trade deal negotiations would continue. Why would other countries continue these trade deal negotiations given the ruling?
Because other countries around the world have faith in the negotiator-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump. And they also probably see how ridiculous this ruling is, and they understand that the administration is going to win, and we intend to win. We already filed an emergency appeal. We expect to fight this battle all the way to the Supreme Court. These other countries should also know, and they do know, that the president reserves other tariff authorities, Section 232, for example, to ensure that America's interests are being restored around the world. But I can confirm that our ambassador for trade, Jameson Greer, already heard from countries around the world this morning who said they intend to continue.
All right, hold on. I don't have access to chat. Give me a sec.
Thank you, Caroline. So many of the president's plans right now are being blocked by courts.
Sorry.
Are going to be the ones who are shaping policy. Does the president wish he would have just become a judge instead?
I think the president would take this job over being a judge, and certainly the president is acting within his authority. He wishes judges would do the same.
But so the courts are basically telling you guys they think that the White House's policies, the president's policies, are in some way against the law. So why can't President Trump ask the Republicans that control the House and the Republicans that control the Senate just to make a new law?
Oh,
Well,
what a
these laws have already
fucking
been
novel
granted
idea,
by
you
the
dip.
Constitution and by laws that have been previously passed. I'll
Oh
give you another
my
example.
God.
For instance, we've been blocked in court for the revocation of
This
visas
guy accidentally hit the nail on the head.
Constitution and by laws that have been previously.
And the White House's policies, the president's policies, are in some way against the law. So why can't President Trump ask the Republicans that control the House and the Republicans that control the Senate just to make a new law?
Well, these laws have already been granted to the president by the Constitution and by laws that have been previously passed. I'll give you
They've
another
been ruled
example.
on,
For instance, we've been
and no,
blocked
they
in court,
don't.
for the revocation of visas from individuals who have the privilege of studying in the United States of America. Secretary of State Rubio has simply used his authority to revoke those visas, to revoke that privilege, and we've seen the courts try to block that. So if these judges want to be Secretary of
visas
State or they want to be the
probably
president, they
legal.
can run for office themselves. It should be the other way around. But
Good
all
that
of
they're
the
doing it.
actions the president has taken rely on legal authorities that have already been granted to him by our nation's existing laws.
And on a different topic, there are some folks
You
in
fucking
President
asshole.
Biden's inner circle who are now in talks with Republicans in Congress to give interviews about how they may have handled President Biden's decline.
Is there
Is the
anything on
president
this? This is some
satisfied
bonk.
with aides only sitting for these transcribed interviews, or would he also like to see some kind of testimony from the former
Some
First Lady,
funky
Dr.
honky
Biden?
bullshit.
I think, frankly, the former First Lady should certainly speak up about what she saw in regards to her husband and when she saw it and what she knew. Because I think
These people are
anybody looking,
demons.
again, at the videos and photo evidence of Joe Biden with your own eyes and a little bit of common sense can see this was a clear cover-up. And Joe Biden.
It's not a
Jill
cover-up,
Biden
you
was certainly
fucker.
complicit in that cover-up. There's documentation, video evidence of her
You shouldn't have ran.
shielding her husband away from the cameras. They were just on The View last week. She was saying everything is fine. She's still lying to the American people. She still thinks the American public are so stupid that they're going to believe her lies. And frankly,
Oh
it's
my
insulting. And
God.
she needs to answer for it. We just.
Caroline. President Trump was asked what he thought about Elon Musk's claim that the big, beautiful bill increases the budget deficit and undermines the work of DOJ. And the president didn't actually comment on those remarks. He just talked about the need to support the bill. So what does the president think about what Elon Musk said?
Well, the president is very proud of the one big beautiful bill, and he wants to see it pass. He wants the Senate to get to work on it and send it to his desk as quickly as possible.
Answer the question.
Of course, as you know, Elon Musk announced last night his departure as an official special government employee from the Trump administration. We thank him for his service. We thank him for getting DOJ off of the ground, and the efforts to cut waste, fraud, and abuse will continue.
So he doesn't have
Oh, whoa. Fucking dodge, 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 you
adds to the deficit and it
stinker.
undermines all his work.
The president commented on this. I commented on it. I told you that this bill saves $1.6 trillion according to the
fucker.
Council of Economic Advisors and the analyses that the president believes in. So he gave a comment. I gave a comment.
There you go. There's the game. They just gave it away.
Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Back on trade, I know you said the White House is going to fight this ruling in court.
What
Is
is
the
the-
administration actively reviewing other avenues, other options to carry out the president's trade policy?
The president's trade policy will continue. We will comply with the court orders, but yes, the president has other legal authorities where he can implement tariffs.
Oh.
However, it does not.
It's an
dispute the
internal
fact
thing.
that the president was right to declare a national emergency when it came to fentanyl and
God.
also when it came to our crippling deficit and
This
the
is
lack
so
of
stupid.
critical supply chains here
Like,
at home.
why? How is this? The Congressional Budget Office, which you guys relied on for the past, forever. I don't know. Like, but instead they're like, we don't like that estimate. We like the Council of Economic Advisors, which is appointed by Trump and just happens to say, well, actually, the growth will add one decimal point more than the estimated deficit add. 4 trillion versus 4.1 trillion. Yeah, fucking right. Give me a break.
That is the reasoning for the president's tariffs. And the court didn't dispute those facts, by the way. And there have been other courts that have reaffirmed the president's position. In fact, a ruling in federal court earlier this month shows that the administration is in the right, said we will win on appeal. A federal district judge in Florida ruled that IEEPA, in fact, does grant the president the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs. And 20 years ago, I will add, they are not a court, the New York Times editorial board responded to the January 2005 trade deficit of $58.3 billion by writing an editorial entitled Dangerous Deficits. And since then, our trade deficit has more than doubled. The U.S. trade deficit in January totaled a whopping $131.4 billion. So people on both sides of the aisle, pundits, lawyers, legal scholars, politicians have all agreed that it is a national emergency, our trade deficits and our lack of critical supply chains here at home.
Hot.
It's just President Trump was the first president to actually act on it, to restore that wealth and that prosperity to the United States of America. And it's very unfortunate that the courts are now blocking his attempts to do that.
Has the administration then reached the point where you are actually asking your economic advisors to start reviewing other avenues to implement the president's trade policy, or do you want to just see this legal process take place for now?
We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are doing both. Josh.
The Fed says that the president met with the Fed chair earlier today. I'm wondering if you can give us any readout of that meeting. The Fed also says that they discussed the economy. I imagine the president might have shared views on rates as well, but what can you share?
I can share with you that we saw, the president and I both saw the statement that the Fed put out after the meeting. That statement is correct. However, the president did say that he believes the Fed chair is making a mistake by not lowering interest rates, which is putting us at an economic disadvantage to China and other countries. And the president's been very vocal about that, both publicly and now I can reveal privately as well.
Did he speak at all about his plans for that position, but whether he would seek to move Jay Powell out of that position or keep him in until his term ends?
No.
Okay. Ask very quickly on the tariff question. You mentioned Section 232 earlier. Are you suggesting that you might sort of speed up some of the existing 232 investigations? Or are you talking potentially using 232 as a replacement power if this ruling doesn't go your way? Of course, you hope it does.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just simply stating the fact that the president has other legal authorities he can use to implement tariffs, and the administration is willing to use those. As you know, we already have applied Section 232 tariffs on specific industries. Thank you. Yep, thank you.
President Trump said that he needed 1.5 to 2 weeks to determine whether or not Vladimir Putin wanted peace. He has been in office now for 4 months. What does he believe is going to happen in the next 1.5 to 2 weeks that would change his opinion?
Well, it is my understanding, it is our hope that Russia and Ukraine will engage in direct talks and negotiations next week in Istanbul, and we believe that meeting is going to take place, and that is a meeting the president encouraged and urged for these two sides to come together and negotiate directly. And the president has been clear from the very beginning of this conflict that he wants to see this conflict solved on the negotiating table, not on the battlefield. And he's told that to both leaders, again, both publicly and privately. So hopefully next week it will move the ball forward in this. We will let you know if the president plans to send a representative. I'm not tracking that at this time. Kelly in the back.
Sure. I wanted to just clarify once and for all the jet, the sale or the gift, because the Qatari government is asking the U.S. to clarify that the jet's pending transfer was initiated by the Trump administration. So is this something that the White House is going to do?
The amount of questions we've received, and we've been incredibly clear, and I have answered this, the president has answered this, the Department of Defense has answered this. This is a government-to-government gift transfer from the Qataris to the Department of Defense, to the United States Air Force. It is now in their hands, and for further details on where that stands, I would refer you to the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. I have nothing more for you on that. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions, one on Big Beautiful Bill, one on immigration.
Sure.
Yesterday, Trump said, we will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. Wondering if you could, share any specifics on that. And in immigration, do you know how many illegal migrants have taken Trump's voucher program so far and have deported themselves?
RNC?
I believe it's in the thousands of those who have chosen the easier route of self-deportation, and we certainly encourage all illegal aliens who are present within our homeland to take that option. It's a much more pleasant option than being deported, and we will deport you if you're here illegally. That's our intention. As for the first question, what the president was speaking about is how this is a great bill. However, it has come as a result of a hard negotiation. It's difficult to get things done on Capitol Hill, but thanks to President Trump, this bill is moving in the right direction.
This is a tough one.
And thanks to House Republicans and the leadership over there as well, who did a great job mediating both sides of the caucus to move this bill to the Senate. And now the president, again, has told his friends on the Senate side and is already engaged in those conversations to get that bill back to his desk as soon as possible. Sure.
Acer or a
Has the
Seuss?
administration been briefed about the incident that happened in Gaza on Tuesday during the rollout of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution of aid to Palestinians there? And should there be a ceasefire, will this administration continue to rely on this foundation for the distribution of aid to civilians?
Are you referring, what incident are you referring to?
Tuesday,
when the aid was rolled out to Gaza for the first time in many months, and meals and food was given to hungry people, thanks to President Trump. Yes, we were briefed on that plan. The president was the reason that aid went into Gaza, and he got the Israelis to support that plan. And I would add that the previous administration rejected such a plan to ensure that these starving and devastated people in the Gaza Strip were given humanitarian aid and assistance. And it was the previous administration that tried to build this pier. You all remember it. It was brought to my attention this morning, and I thought, that's a good point. Why don't I bring that up? Because there's been so much criticism. In fact, it was on the front page of a newspaper this morning about the criticism for this president having a humanitarian heart and giving people badly needed food and supplies. Nobody wanted to talk about how the previous administration failed in that endeavor. They built this pier that cost $230 million. It lasted about 20 days, and more than 60 U.S. service members were injured, as a part of this floating aid pier that did nothing for the people of Gaza. The president is opening up his humanitarian heart to get aid into the region, while his team simultaneously negotiates a ceasefire and the return of all hostages. We are moving the ball forward in a positive direction for all people. The president wants to see peace for all
That
people.
doesn't sound right.
Caroline. A notice investigation found that the Hallmark Maha Commission report that was released last week cites studies that appear to not exist. We know that
this was
because
Yahoo.
in part we
What?
reached out to some of the listed authors
My
who said
dummies.
that they didn't write the studies cited. So I want to ask, does the White House have confidence that the information coming from HHS can be trusted?
Yes, we have complete confidence in Secretary Kennedy and his team at HHS. I understand there were some formatting issues with the Maha report that are being addressed, and the report will be updated. But
Yeah,
it
this
does
was a disaster.
not negate the substance of the report, which, as you know, is one of the most transformative health reports that has ever been released by the federal government, and is backed on good science that has never been recognized by the federal government.
Follow-up, can you talk about what tools or research goes into production of these kinds of reports? For instance, is it AI that's used to put together these reports now?
I can't speak to that. I would defer you to the Department of Health and Human Services. What I know is just what I told you. Lindsay.
Thank you, Caroline. Many small businesses that we've talked to since the tariffs have been in place have said what would really help them is a long-term plan so that they can catch up. In light of what's happened now, this trade war with the courts, how will that impact this 90-day window? Will you guys be adjusting that? And how can you help relieve some of these small businesses?
Well, I would say nobody understands the needs of business owners, and nobody has the backs of our small business community more than President Donald J. Trump. He believes, I've heard him talk about this with small business owners himself, that small businesses are truly the backbone of our American economy. And that's why the president is supporting the One Big Beautiful Bill. So for those you spoke to who are asking for a long-term plan, big tax cuts are coming their way. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime for their workers, more money in their pockets their bottom lines will be larger. They can pay their people more. Wages are going to go up. Inflation will continue to come down. We've already seen energy prices plummeting as a result of this president's economic and energy agenda that he has been implementing across the federal government, reducing burdensome regulation. All of that is good news for small business owners across the country. That's why they strongly support the president, and that's the Trump economic plan that is underway. And again, you're emphasizing, I believe, the need to pass the one.
Not equilateral or isosceles. It's a.
Will you still work within that 90-day window for these trade negotiations? Does that still stand?
Again, as far as we're concerned, our trade agenda is moving forward, and we've already heard from countries around the world today who will continue to negotiate in good faith with the United States so we can cut good trade deals on behalf of the American people, and we fully expect to win this case in court. Sure.
On Golden Dome, the president put out this number of $61 billion. How did he arrive at that? Is that the number it will cost to protect Canada, and is it negotiable, or where did it come from?
I can certainly ask the president, and I can check in with our research team, and we'll get you the facts on that number. But the Golden Dome is certainly a significant investment in our nation's national security and homeland security to protect Americans, all of you in this room, from future threats.
Any read out on, have the Canadians been talking in good faith about paying to be in it? I know they've expressed some interest.
Well, the president has certainly expressed to the Canadians how we are essentially subsidizing their national defense. He brought it up in his meeting with their new leader here, and as you know, we'll be traveling to Canada next month for the G7, so I expect that topic of discussion to come up on that trip as well. Sure.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. There was a USA rally in Seattle that happened over the weekend that devolved into some protests and riots. The Seattle Mayor Harrell said that it was a far-right rally held here to provoke a reaction by promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values, which he defined as LGBT values. I know the FBI is looking into this, but has the president reached out to the mayor at all, asked him to apologize for this, and is this something that the administration will consider an example of anti-Christian bias?
What?
I'm not aware of that case. I know the FBI is looking into it, but I'm not aware of any phone calls the president may or may not have made to the mayor of that city.
And then on Doge, we know that Elon Musk is leaving. Do you have an updated leadership structure for who is leading the group? Is Russ Vought involved? And what is its new mission now, if any?
Well, the entire cabinet is involved, and I spoke to the president about it this morning, and the entire cabinet understands the need to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse. And each cabinet secretary at their respective agencies is committed to that.
Comedy
That's
was
why they
17.
were working hand in hand with Elon Musk, and they'll continue to work with the respective Doge employees who have onboarded as political appointees at all of these agencies. So surely the mission of Doge will continue, and many Doge employees are now political appointees and employees of our government. And to the best of my knowledge, all of them intend to stay and continue this important work.
Is there a Doge leader taking the place of Mr. Musk?
Well, again, the Doge leaders are each and every member of the president's cabinet and the president himself, who is wholeheartedly committed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from our government. Michael.
Caroline, there's conflict.
I don't know.
In the Middle East right now. Saudi television network Al Arabia is saying that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 60-day ceasefire. Sources with Hamas are saying that has not been agreed to. If and when that does happen, will we expect to hear something from President Trump announcing that?
As I said earlier, yes, indeed. If there is an announcement to be made, it will come from the White House, the president, myself, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
Caroline, one big beautiful bill. The president says he's not happy with all aspects of it. What changes would he like to see be made?
I have no clue.
Can this bill be both big and beautiful?
It is a one big beautiful bill, as the name rings true, and the president, as I said, is currently working with his friends in the Senate who have some recommendations for the bill. Those negotiations and discussions are continuing, but the president's ultimate priority is to get this bill back to his desk for signature. And the president's priorities in this bill are non-negotiable in terms of the tax priorities he wants to see and the large tax cuts in the border investments that are currently in this bill. He is not going to allow them to go away for the American people. Sure, go ahead.
So,
yes, I wanted to as the president spoke to any of these foreign leaders about these agreements that have been reached, specifically the case of the United Kingdom that already has an agreement in place after this decision of the court in New York.
Has the president talked to foreign leaders about what?
About the court decision in New York.
Which court decision in New York?
The trade court.
Oh, the trade court decision. He did speak to the leader of the GM this morning. And he said that was a very good call and a good discussion. And as I said, the president's cabinet, Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, and Ambassador Jameson Greer have all been in touch with their counterparts in countries around the world to let them know the United States will still be at the negotiating table. And we still expect countries around the world to treat us fairly. Again, I will just close by saying that how ridiculous it is that we've been ripped off. Our middle class has been hollowed out. Our manufacturing base has left and gone overseas. Jobs have been offshored. And now no court did anything about that. No court did anything about hundreds of thousands of people being put out of work, about thousands of factories being closed down, about our deficits going to dangerous levels, as the New York Times has said. But now a court is trying to stop a president from trying to correct those wrongs of the past. And this administration will continue to do that. It's a promise the president made to the American people, and it's a promise they elected him on. We will win this battle in court, and the president will implement his America First trade policy. Thank you, everyone.
Is the U.S. Steel situation tomorrow to speak?
I can tell you the president greatly looks forward to going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he will discuss this historic deal and discuss American jobs and American steel, and we hope to see you all there. Thanks, guys.
All right, well, that was fucking nothing. I want to watch the rest of Adam Conover, Tim Pool, because this was just fucked.
Bickering and arguments, and I'm...
All right, let's give ourselves the last, we'll go like 7 minutes back.
Of which you speak, okay? But if I were to be in England and I were to make a joke on their stage, and I were to be put into a van and removed from a country, I would say, this is a bad thing about England, and I think that the country sucks, and I think that they should change it, and I don't think people should...
Oh, dude, no worries. Welcome, just for the temporary hi. Yeah. Dude, no worries. You don't need to apologize. And look, you got a life. So do I. Like, enjoy your day. All right. You don't need to like apologize or make you don't need an excuse. I'm just happy when you show up, but obviously I've never hold it against you if you don't. So enjoy your day, brother.
Go there anymore, and that sucks for them, and it sucks for us.
You wouldn't make a joke about Islam in the United States. You wouldn't.
Okay. Sure. What's that meant to prove?
You don't actually believe in free speech. You fear the consequences.
Because I don't make a joke about the topic that you demand me to?
Because this topic in particular has resulted in people like a Charlie Hebdo getting murdered.
Yeah, that's bad. It's bad that they were murdered.
South Park tried just showing Muhammad, and Comedy Central wouldn't let him do it.
Yeah, that's bad.
So let's see you stand up for that value and come out and make a joke about
Islam. I've stood up about free speech plenty of times. What are you talking about?
Take it to the next level, brother.
Okay.
How about we do this?
You
believe in free speech?
Dude, this is what you do when you've lost an argument, is that you just
you're not even arguing
to this. You just jump to this. What? What'd you say?
You brought it up.
What did I? Oh, the Islam piece of it.
Likewise.
No.
And now I'm continuing the conversation, and you're derailing into you must have lost the argument.
No, because
let's stand up for South Park, for Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
I stand up for them.
So go on stage and show a big picture of Muhammad.
I'm sorry. What the thing that you're doing?
Stand up for free speech, brother. Do it.
So
I'll do it with you.
So you're demanding me to go on stage and
prove
do
you
something
care about
specific,
free speech. Prove
and
you care
unless
about
I do, I'm a coward.
I'm saying this
is a bizarre rhetorical move.
Speech.
This is a bizarre rhetorical move.
I didn't call you a coward. I said prove you care about free speech.
Yeah, I prove
do something that creates real risk to your person for free speech.
Yeah, I speak about shit all the time, dude. I'm happy to live in America.
Someone help me out. What is this fucking show? HBO comedy with 17 Emmys. I thought it was Glee. Maybe it is, but I don't know what informal I would be, because I would be right and like, yep, yeah, but not ye. I mean, I just don't see the New York Times saying ye. I'm gonna go with it for now, but it just doesn't sound right.
America,
Anyways.
where the things I say don't create real risk to my person. In fact, if I were to say the things that you're saying, I would not be creating real risk to my person.
You don't think so?
I do not think so.
Then why not just do it? Prove me wrong.
Because I don't have anything in particular to say about those topics.
Just put a picture of Muhammad up and say praise be.
What?
Prove I'm wrong.
I'm really glad we got here again because it's just very fun to sit in how weird this part of the conversation is.
Remember Charlie Hebdo?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, a bunch of people were shot because they
Put a picture of Muhammad.
Yeah, that's bad.
You think if you did that, they might want to shoot you too?
Yeah, maybe.
So you shouldn't do it.
I mean, I don't have it. Well, the particular images that they showed, I didn't think were like very funny. Like it was their right to
wouldn't
do
let
it.
South Park do it either. They censored the whole thing.
Yeah,
and
that's
bleeped out,
bad.
like,
Yeah, that's bad, and I think that's contrary to American values.
Why won't the free speech people who believe we should live in this country stand up against that?
No idea.
I'm sorry. I'm not
Listing
standing
at
for free speech
Christie's?
unless I do what exactly?
Someone's got to help me out here. I'm stuck. I'm very stuck.
I didn't say the only way for you to stand up for free speech is to do something. I said, why won't people who are claiming...
You called me a hypocrite, and I don't understand what's hypocritical about me only doing jokes about the topics that I'm interested in.
That you would not go to the UK and speak in violation of their speech laws.
I know that.
I mean, I went there. I made fun of their government. I talked about
going for a little
you
bite,
know, the fire at Heathrow because that impacted my job when I was there. I talked about yeah.
So you can make fun of white people, but you can't make fun of non-white people. You go to jail for that.
Okay, yeah, I think that would if it's as you say, that sounds like if it would apply to me as a comedian.
I would not.
I think it would say that's a bad law.
I would not go to Turkey and speak out against Islam, and I would not go to the UK and violate their speech laws.
Oh my God.
Okay, so are you a coward? What's your point?
No, I actually agree with the sovereignty of nations, and if they have laws, I'm not going to violate them.
Oh, I see. I see the point that you're making. Okay, so when things are legal, they're just.
No.
Okay. So then what is your point?
That's
So
your
I need
argument
a
is that
chatter.
Foreigners should come here.
So one of your values
consequences.
is you should
If you have no clue,
you should
just say
respect
no
the sovereignty of other
clue. I
nations.
just-
But again, look, this is
Anarchist.
a
Someone's got to be an
this
anarchist.
is a recent change in the way that the U.S. prosecutes and selectively enforces
Tiger
the laws
King?
that are on the books, and that's what happened to Rumesa Öztürk, and again, that's like a material change in like the spirit
I
and
will
values
say,
of America.
Just because I think we spent like an hour on the one subject.
Yeah, I've been having a great time. Yeah,
I agree. It's been fun. I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
In terms, you mentioned that Trump is, it's the makings of authoritarianism and things like that. Do you think that's distinct from any other administration?
Nosy Parkers.
Keep going.
Is the authoritarian push from the Trump administration? Obviously, there's going to be procedural distinctions, but I mean, like, were other administrations not also doing similar authoritarian maneuvers that were a gas?
Yeah, I mean, every single American administration could. I'm sure I could find things that I disagree with. Absolutely.
I think one of the challenges that we have in the United States right now is the people that largely support Trump and voted for him, particularly in his first term and largely carrying over in the second one, non-consecutive, had never voted before. We saw parts of the country that normally don't vote start turning red, start lighting up with new voters. I was at a rally for Trump in Fort Lauderdale, and most of the people that I met were like, I don't vote. I never voted before. So these were new voters, which were like poor, white, working class people. And so I think we end up seeing happen, especially right now,
stand by that.
For younger voters, it's interesting considering they are shifting to the right, but they also have less memory of administrations past. For me, I voted for Obama. He was an evil man. And I didn't vote in 2016 because I said the system is corrupt. I've lived through, I was a teenager when the Gore v. Bush stuff happened, and I just saw bickering and arguments, and I'm right, then war and bullshit. Then Obama comes around, and I was, how was I, like 22 or something, and people were like, you gotta vote, I was 22, you gotta vote for him, he's changed, it's new, he wasn't supposed to win, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the person, so I voted for Obama. One of the first things he does is he bombs a Pakistani village, kills a bunch of women and children, and I went, holy fuck, stopped voting. Didn't vote in 2016 either, because I said, fuck this. The issue we see largely now is, To see so many people who
I have
are
no clue.
older millennials, Gen X, and Boomer acting like Donald Trump is an aberration. For a lot of people, it's like you're fucking lying. You're lying, or you have a myopic view. I lived through when Barack Obama signed the indefinite detention rendition provisions of the NDAA, or when George W. Bush lied to the American people, didn't declare war, got a bullshit AUMF, and at the time during the Iraq and Afghanistan war, it was if you did not agree, they blacklist you from media and all these things. I don't see a functional difference until now. What I see now, I wouldn't necessarily call authoritarianism, in that Trump gutting the budget and shutting down departments is weakening federal authority for the first time in my life.
Okay.
I mean, he's not weakening federal authority. He's weakening state capacity. He's, destroying our ability to predict the weather. He's firing scientists and park service people and stuff like that. In terms of authority, they're beefing up the law enforcement departments, and they're sort of, reaching out legally in stronger ways than ever. So the law enforcement, the capacity for the state to sort of control your behavior is, the people with guns there's more of them, and they're more powerful than ever. Now, there's some I'm sure that we'll disagree about, like the EPA, you'd probably see as, the sort of department that's forcing people to do things. I think the EPA is mostly good. We probably disagree about that. But most of the stuff that that he's firing are just the basic good things that the government does. The government does a lot of really bad shit. Government does a lot of really good shit. One of them is predicting the weather, firing thousands of NOAA scientists who are predict when tornadoes are going to come hit, places like this here in West Virginia, right?
We don't get we're in the mountains.
Okay. So I don't know. Yeah.
I think as most places you can get a tornado, and sometimes they form, but it's not like Tornado Alley or anything.
Yeah. It's just funny, some of the people who interact with the weather service the most are in the reddest areas, the tornado prone places, the storm watch people, stuff like that. And
they voted for it.
So a lot of it is and it's really sad, because it's just sort of ignorance, this anti-science, anti-intellectual sentiment sort of sweeping the country is really bad. But I think this interesting thing that you point out, though, is there are past authoritarian things that other past presidents did, and I'll agree to that and say, that's really bad. The difference is you're stumping for it when Trump does it, and I find that really interesting. Well, you're stumping for we should deport foreign students who write an op-ed. You said it's good that they did it.
Marginally good.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So you're stumping for it.
So
you're on your platform saying it's good.
Marginally
that's
good.
my point. Yeah.
But I think the important
the
distinction is should implies whenever it happens. I don't agree with that. I think, as I've said a million times, I don't understand. I don't want to go back on the issue. It's an absurdity to claim that someone who's critical of Israel is pro-Hamas.
Yeah.
People who are pro-Hamas are pro-Hamas. So there are nuances in all things. What I see largely right now is Trump won the popular vote. He's got approval as of April 22nd. To be fair, this is pre-tariff, so I'm sure it's gone down. But he's got general approval from most demographics except for the 70-plus bunch. And I don't see the removal of government agencies as authoritarian, especially when he promised to do it and then did it based on the people who voted for him.
I'm listening to just finish an audiobook about the rise of the Third Reich, just boning up a little history. And one of the first things that they do is they destroy the civil service, right, and that kind of state capacity, frighten those people, get them to fall into line, and that's what a big part of what Trump has done, and I think it's been really effective.
Frightening who?
Frightening the actual people who work in the civil service, right? Well, firing them and frightening the rest, right? And getting them to behave differently, installing loyalists, stuff like that. I think that's plainly authoritarian. Every administration will change out the department heads. They won't. There's. I did a show about the U.S. government, and I met some department heads who are like, oh, this person's a political appointee, and they're not that bright, right? From both both administrations, but the civil service underneath them, right? The people who are like the trained experts, the weather scientists at NOAA, the regulators at like the FDIC who like keep your bank balance safe, stuff like that. Been wiping those people out and replacing like the actual people with expertise with loyalists, right? And that's where you end up with the primary value is loyalty to Trump rather than actually getting the thing done properly. The DEI push to like that's a fig leaf for removing people who are not sufficiently loyal, as well as there's a lot of reasons that they're doing that.
I'll say on that regard,
it's all pretty.
I won't make a direct counter argument to that, but I do think that's pretty assumptive.
Oh yeah, I'm making a claim, and you can get into it or not.
Yeah, it's trying to read into the intent, which may or may not be correct.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, I think it may or may not be correct. That is my view, though.
Right. My point is, and I respect that. Like, your view is based on those actions. There actually absolutely is an easy vehicle for firing people if your move is DEI. It's like, these people here, I don't want them here. Oh, you were hired incorrectly. You're part of a department. I don't want to get rid of them. On the surface, outside of that, I think the DEI stuff is illegal. And I'm glad to see it purged and removed.
I
think it violates the Civil Rights Act.
DEI programs, you think violate the Civil Rights Act?
Yeah, I think, there's an interesting conversation around what is legal and what's not. A lot of people think if SCOTUS says it's true, it's legal. I don't think that's fair, because that would mean that Roe v. Wade should have been overturned, but I think most liberals think it shouldn't have been. So they would argue that it wasn't constitutional or legal. But the Civil Rights Act says we're not supposed to discriminate on the basis of race, sex, religion, gender, etc.
Okay.
And when you create DEI programs where you're specifically targeting based on those factors, you're clear violation of the Civil Rights Act. So, you got to amend the law or change it or create new provisions. But how I grew up, I would never want to be in a circumstance where race was a determining factor in whether or not I could get into school or get a job.
Yeah, neither would I. But for a lot of people, it fucking is, man.
But that's why we got the Civil Rights Act. And you have a right to sue the institutions that are in violation of that. And through those laws, we've eliminated largely blockbusting and redlining. And then Democrats largely started to enact.
A lot of redlining still, but it's better than it used to be.
It's true. And that shouldn't be allowed, and it's through the Civil Rights Act, through the lawsuits, we've gotten rid of those things.
I don't know what Christie's
I don't understand how we've circled back, and it's largely through the liberal side of things to start using race again.
No.
That's crazy to me.
To start using race again.
Let me clarify that. Obviously, everybody always was secretly trying to use race because this country has a history. I don't think it's fair to say just this country, but people are racist. I think everybody's racist. And we're trying our best, I think, civilizationally, to be like, let's stop doing that. But there are a lot of people that don't because they're racist. So when I see, I don't care if it's a white redneck dude saying he doesn't like black people or whatever, these people online that want to make, anytime they post a video, they they'll post a video of black people committing a crime, and it's like, brother, I could find videos too of white people committing crimes. If you want to do like a multivariate study of every single instance of video crime or whatever, we could. There are FBI crime sets, I get that. But there are racist people out there.
Right?
But the Democrats are still engaged in racist practices through DEI and gender-based discrimination, et cetera, which is just clear violation of every title of the Civil Rights Act.
There's a million different programs that get lumped in as DEI. I'm interested to know, you do think racism exists in America, and it's a problem that we should keep fighting?
Ugh.
Profoundly exists in this country, and I think I don't think it'll ever go away. I think we have the proximity is the best cure. You grow up around people and you understand they're good people. You tolerate them. I think we have a challenge with enclaves. So you'll find, and I think a lot of conservatives need to hear this too, because I was in Virginia, near Hampton Roads. It's a lot of racism there, and I mean literally white areas that are predominantly white that don't like black people, don't like Mexicans, don't like Chinese people. And that exists,
I don't know about that.
and they're going to be racist. But you get a similar but different kind of function in white, uppity, liberal conclaves too. Yeah. And so I do think it's a problem. But the problem that I see now is affluent white liberals who have this.
God forbid.
Let me use an example. Do you know about the Yale study that found that white liberals they reduce their vocabularies to talk to black people?
I do not know about it, but it sounds like it could be true. It sounds anecdotally, there's a lot of racist white liberals.
They present themselves as less competent in interactions with African Americans.
Yeah.
Conservatives tend not to, but there still are obviously racist parts of the South, especially in the South.
Racist parts all over America.
I should
and by the way,
absolutely know this.
racism isn't unique to white people either.
Right.
You know?
I mean, brother, go to Asia. I mean, anybody who's been to China or Japan or Korea, it's like.
Well, and in America, we have a form of racism that's like, you know, based around white supremacy, but it's like non-white people can like participate and like be a part of it. You know?
I think that exists, but I don't think it's the predominant anymore. It may be largely.
So let me ask you this: when like you know, there's a plane crash or a fire or something like that, and the Trump administration, the first thing they do is they say, too many black air traffic controllers. Like that's the first thing they do.
When did they say that?
Oh,
that
come
was like
on.
Immediately they just come out and they're like DEI in the FAA. That's the problem. That was like the first. That was the first thing Trump came out and did, and then that became the narrative.
Maybe. All I can tell you is,
does that seem like racism to you? Because it does to me.
What I can tell you is I interviewed the Secretary of Transportation. He actually rejected that premise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
He rejected the premise that. Sorry.
Right. So I asked Secretary Duffy, are we actually seeing an increase in these airline accidents, because we've seen these high-profile stories? Some have argued it's DEI finally catching up, which I don't think makes sense, that all of a sudden just planes crash because they hired diverse, people or whatever. And Duffy said no. He said, we've not seen a significant uptake. It's largely just a phenomenon of the media, and people are getting riled up. And of course, the right wants to say it's because of DEI, which makes no sense. The left is saying it's because of the Trump administration, which makes no sense. The issue is, we had stories that were sensationalized in the media.
That's
people
a dumb
perceived
hint.
an increase in air traffic accidents, but we are going to try and streamline and fix the FAA.
Yeah, no, I felt that. Well, look, the air traffic controller system is in a obviously a terrible state, and it's a problem.
Did you
It's been a
see the
problem in both
computers they have?
In
From
the
the
Newark thing is, I mean, look,
Yeah.
there's something to be said for old computers. There's a lot of people who make a lot of hay about government systems being written in Fortran and COBOL, but that stuff is actually really like
So
future
are
proof.
we.
Like it's old code bases that are like really well run and stuff.
It's not future proof. It's subject to ICS hacks. It's insane.
In some cases, I've read engineering analyses for in some cases we don't need to make fun of the old code. It's okay to have old code. Same reason why punch cards weren't so bad for voting sometimes. Like the old shit works well in some cases. But the FAA, air traffic control, we got to fix it up. It's an infrastructure problem in the country. So based on what and I believe that a lot of the crashes were clustering, right? A couple crashes happened in short order.
Right.
Happens randomly. Well, not just media. It's like the human psychology, right?
Right.
3 random events happen together, and you think a whole lot are happening all at once. But like Donald Trump, the man, the human being, his literal first response was to come out and go, too many black air traffic controllers. Too many. I mean, I'm paraphrasing for comedy.
Yeah, I
I
don't think he specifically said black people.
No, he didn't say black
I
people.
think
He
he's
said
talking about
he said DEI.
You know what
blamed it on
paraphrasing
DEI
means, you
immediately.
dense
and
fuck.
there is this odd, look, I'm not a fan of corporate DEI programs, especially. The right was really smart to seize on DEI as a slur to tar all attempts to address racism with, because it's an acronym.
They're calling it "didn't earn it."
Jesus.
Yeah. I've been through some seminars that were like a waste of time or whatever, kind of annoying. And I think that, the corporate response to, George Floyd's murder and everything that happened afterwards was like pretty toothless and stupid.
Oh, is he going to bite
But
on
I find
murder?
it bizarre to watch the right, like something goes wrong and they're immediately like, oh, the problem is that we have a woman fire chief, or we have a, people of color air traffic controllers. Oh, that's just straight up racism. Like,
but it's a communication.
Wow, but
failure.
you
What do you mean it's
you've, like,
communication
somehow
error,
done a
Tim?
little loop-de-loop where you're like, oh, I think DEI is racist, therefore me yelling at black people in positions of power is not racist.
I mean,
like, it's bizarre.
but that's not the case. I mean,
What do you
the right wanted to
mean?
elect Larry Elder to governor of California. The meme among all conservatives is that Clarence
We didn't
Thomas
say
should clone
this.
himself and
Look,
replace
we
every
wanted a
other
black
Supreme Court
person.
justice.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about
We wanted
the rush to blame these infrastructure problems on.
So I would call that a failure of communication for sure. The issue,
call it racism.
but it's not the target. The target is people who are hired without passing, not the fact that they're black. So Charlie
Yeah, it
Kirk got a
doesn't
lot
mean
of
you
flack for
don't
this
have to
because he
pass,
said,
you
I go on a
fucko.
plane, I see a black pilot, and I think, am I supposed to be worried?
Yeah, well, that's racist.
But the point he
It
was
is.
making was he was calling you racist, dude, and you guys didn't get that. He said, you have created a situation
Come on,
where
Adam, fight,
average people
please.
think you are hiring people who can't do the job based on race, and we don't want to live that way.
That's not
I mean,
what
he's the one
DEI
getting on the
is.
plane and seeing a black person and saying that person's not qualified. I don't get it.
That's not what he's saying. He says Democrats are intentionally hiring underqualified people based on race.
No.
Why are they
You
putting
still
us
have
in
to
a situation
You
like
still
this?
have to qualify.
He's saying that if a black person is in the seat, it means they're unqualified. That's his assertion. It's not
No,
mine.
he's saying he doesn't know because he knows you are advocating for it.
I'm just listening to the words that he's saying. It seems pretty straightforward.
I would say that when the left and the right only listen to the surface level clips and arguments, they don't actually understand what the person is conveying. And
This
so the
is
argument then is Charlie
insanely
Kirk is a
dumb.
racist, which is not true. Charlie Kirk's point on that plane was, let's just map it out 1, 2, 3. Democrats have created policies by which they will put people in positions of authority who don't have the same caliber degree
not
or have
true.
passed certain tests because of race. We've
Where's the
seen policies
evidence
where they
for
will actually
that?
go down the list of top candidates until they get to a race. This creates a concern among people
Still a top
that,
candidate
that
list. Like,
individuals
I'm not-
are being hired without the capability
even necessarily
based
a
on
fan of
race.
DEI, but
That's
like-
the idea he's trying to convey. Not that he doesn't want to fly with the
This
black
is
You
flag.
think
So
that when you think that in the time when we only had white pilots or white executives or white whatever, all those people were hired on merit. None of them floated through for some other reason, like
Nepotism.
Yeah, exactly.
Kickbacks.
Like there's the
I bet some people gave BJs.
Yeah, exactly. The systems are like they already
agree.
do that for everybody. So
But it
like
wasn't based on
so,
race.
so for him to go in and say,
is true.
"Oh, when I see a black person, that's when I think." That not
Because
when
your
I
policy
see a
is
white
race-based.
person.
Your policy is
then
racist.
that's racist on his part because he's only focusing on when the black people.
But it's
are
because the
there.
policy is race
Oh my
based.
God. No, what the fuck?
The policy is race and gender based. And so the issue is not Charlie Kirk saying he doesn't like black people. He's saying Democrats are hiring people who are less qualified based on race. This is creating a concern for people, which we don't want to experience.
So the counter argument would be if you have a system that has no black people in it, right? You have a pool of people doing the job that has no black people in it. That clearly is
There we go.
not based on merit because
fine.
black people are X percent of the population, and surely some would have gotten through if it was really based on nothing but merit. So some of the existing white people must actually not have gotten there via merit. It must be because of a race-based system. So instead, let's adjust the system so that we give everybody an equal opportunity. That is going to mean that there are going to be more black people in the system. Now that happens, he now gets on the plane, he sees a black person, and he says, "Oh, now it seems they seem unqualified to me." Yeah, it's pretty straightforwardly racist.
I actually think that it was racist systems that kept out qualified candidates. What I would say to your argument is the only distinction between what you said and white nationalists is that you want a system to bring those people in, and white nationalists don't. So you both the left and the right agree that there is some kind of phenomenon where black people should be qualified and aren't qualifying. I disagree with that. I think that there were institutions throughout history that hampered the process by which minorities were able to go to schools to effectively get those degrees. It's very difficult.
That is
The liberal argument floats
kind of
dangerously
what
close, I think,
DEI
to
is
what white nationalists are hoping for. It's not to say that you're wrong or anything, but it's a similar argument.
What?
That is the implication. So I'll put it this way: Ben and Jerry's. Do you know what the 1350 is? They call it the 1350.
Is that a Ben and Jerry's thing?
Yeah. Not intentionally, but this was like, holy shit, brother. Like, maybe you shouldn't be tweeting this. The 1350 is a meme which references 13. Despite
hey,
being
how's it
13%
going,
of the
brother?
Population, black people. commit 50% of the-
Not a whole lot. I mean, we watched the White House press secretary briefing. It was there was a wonderful part of it that was Caroline Leavitt talking about the big beautiful bill, and she was like, "Yeah, the Congressional Budget Office, which is super biased, which has been relied on since I don't know as long as I've been paying attention. This is $4 trillion, but it doesn't account for growth." And the Council of Economic Advisors, alluding to this independent council, says the growth will actually account for a reduction in the deficit or an increased revenue of 4.1 trillion. So just enough to cover up that little blip there. and barely make it a surplus. And then I was like, okay, so who are these Council of Economic Advisors? It's people within Trump's White House that he appointed himself. So it's like, it's just so extraordinarily stupid. Really, the people that you put there are going to tell you the exact thing you want to hear? Wow. How novel. What a insane idea. Like, oh, give me a fucking break. And today, well, I'm sure you saw, and I'm going to go over it in a bit. After listening to Caroline Leavitt, I needed a little slop break. The courts blocked the mass tariffs, and they blocked the whole student visa thing, or the block of international students for Harvard. And Caroline Leavitt obviously railed against that. The new media seat was like super, like farther MAGA than Trump. Which was like, how are you going to fight these people? And then there was one good question, which was, well, Trump has the House and Senate. Why doesn't he just advocate for a law that would grant him these powers? And she just like short-circuited after that one. So I thought that was pretty funny. And she was like, well, actually, they're already legal, even though filibuster, sure. That is true. But the judges are saying, no, this isn't legal. It's like, I don't know. Have you seen anything, or the legal arguments about these judges? Because I don't know legal or not. But if you think it's Congress is deadlocked current orders for the Democrats, so no compromise with Trump, period. Yeah, I mean, look, you saw the reaction after Chuck Schumer and some of his gang capitulated to Trump, and that tanked their popularity. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it should be no compromise, obviously, but there is some shit in the big beautiful bill that does need to go. Like the posting of bond or security for a preliminary injunction, that has to leave. The Medicare stuff, that's fine. They can fight over that. I care, obviously, but I think the main sticking point, for me at least, is that security for preliminary injunctions and TROs. That cannot be put into law as it stands in that bill. But just taking a quick slop break, because this interview was fucking crazy. But yeah. Anyways.
Crimes. And so that is a meme shared among white nationalists. Mm-hmm. Ben and Jerry's put out the exact same meme, but tried approaching it from a DEI standpoint. And this lit the fucking internet up with people mocking Ben and Jerry's, being like, holy shit, they've gone full white nationalists. They said, despite making up 13% of the population, black people make up 50% of the arrests. And the white nationalists said, you're correct, 100% correct. We agree with you on everything, and started cheering for Ben and Jerry's. And I was like,
why is Ben and Jerry's talking about politics?
Don't take their arguments from them. Like, I think it's fair to say that there are racist, components of racism that have existed throughout this country for a long time. The solution would be colorblind hiring processes and educational benefits that target class and not race, because then you remove the racial component from the argument completely.
Holy fuck,
instead of
Tim
creating
Pool
a
made
racial
a good
argument
point.
for the white nationalist.
But if you admit that people in America are racist, you can't.
Like, the thing about when people talk about colorblind hiring processes, it's just not feasible, because, like, yeah, a lot of the job market is sending in resumes and whatnot, and that is already colorblind. I mean, well, not really. I mean, you do have to fill out, like, you can opt in just filling out like your race, gender, veteran status, all that. But the other half of the job market is via networking, and that's just is necessary, like inherently not colorblind. So you can't really get rid of that unless you remove the networking aspect of the job market completely, which was just not going to happen. So some form of, I don't even know, but I the idea of better education, more education spend for disaffected people, lower income communities, I think is a phenomenal idea.
You want to, you can't build systems that are completely blind to race, or you have race.
No, you can't.
You have individual racists continuing to
That'll never
exert their
change.
power over the system.
So what you do
so
is
you accept racism. You're just like, okay, yeah, racism will continue to affect every part of the system,
and we can mitigate it, right? So for instance, for hiring practices, when it comes to hiring managers, they should
okay, so yesterday I had someone challenge me on my interpretation of the Constitution and essentially asked, what is the point where you would disobey the Constitution and violate it based on moral principles? That is a good question. It's a good question because initially I was dead set on following the process regardless, but then it dawned on me after thinking about it for a bit that if you became a slave to the process, then you get the same injustice as deviation over time. Hold on. Let me think on that for a sec. Like, that's sort of following the process. You're talking about in terms of like the removal orders, or because the processes exist for a reason. You know, it's not like you. There's elements of a degree, all right? So when Biden kind of circumvented the process, it was, you know, to at least try to make a legal case. It didn't ignore injunctions and shit. But blatantly ignoring court orders and all that, that is an injustice to the American people. And that's so far out of bounds. Constitution in general. And there's some argument that I'd entertain of like, okay, something has to be done like expeditiously or something, where the process can kind of be more of a outline than a strict thing, but you should, at least in good faith, do as much of the process as you can. As it pertains to the Trump admin, the shit with like ignoring injunctions and TROs is so far out of bounds that I don't think that would apply to what you're saying, in my opinion.
Should have no access to the name or the race of the individual. It should literally be, here's the resume, here's our qualifications, is it a yes or a no? And what we do then is, we should target class-based opportunities for the younger generations, meaning if we go, like, so for instance, I grew up in Chicago, heavily racially segregated. We had 47th Street was a dividing line where on one side it was all black. On the other side, it was largely white, but, you know, there was some Latino there. This created a lot of problems. Two different neighborhoods looking at each other like others. And if you were white and went to the black neighborhood, you got arrested. If you were black and went to the white neighborhood, the police wouldn't go near them because they were scared of being called racist. The gangs would come from the black side and rob people on the white side, creating a lot of anger, where the white people would be like, it's black people doing it. And then I'd be like, I actually think it's a different community. It doesn't matter if it's white or otherwise. They just don't view as part of their community, so they don't care if they rob you. But if I robbed you, all the neighbors would get mad at me, right?
Nebulous.
The issue isn't the race, but this created massive racial tensions. If you went into that neighborhood and gave the black neighborhood a ton of benefits, resources, checks, or whatever based on race, brother, there'd be murders. It'd be fucking nuts, the racial tension you'd create. But if we do it based on income and class, Then you'd have equal amounts of both neighborhoods now going to the same schools, making friends with each other. And then you're going to have one guy who's going to be like, yeah, I live on 46th. And I'm like, no way, dude, I live on 48th. Like, bro, you're south of 47th? Let's hang out, man. And now they're friends. They don't view each other as others. They don't feel like their taxes are going to one racial group. Instead, what's ended up happening is DEI programs have said it's going to be based on race. And so then you get, you know, if you go to like Appalachia, for instance, these are the poorest of the poor, and they feel like what little they could have is being given away to other people based on race, and they're which breeds racial.
Sorry. So they use an example, or if an amendment would codify slavery, would I obey the law? And I said yes, but I would try to change it. They were unsatisfied on my approach of using the correct process to change immoral additions to the law, since they believe that if you believe a law to be immoral, you should encroach on it until you can eliminate it, which I still disagree with, but there's a point where morality overrides the process if no remedy remains. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's yeah, I think. There is a point where morality override. Yeah, if you have no remedy, you have to. Yeah, that's an error in our system. If there should be a remedy for every like injustice in some small. Like obviously, there's things that are too small to even bring to small claims court, but like generally, the point of a lot of our system is this: there's an injustice, here's a remedy. Yeah, and sometimes you gotta issue with their belief, though, is that, yeah, yeah, that's fair. I mean, at this point, slavery would be quite literally unconstitutional. So, yeah, right. There's a. I don't think you can have it both ways. You can't say, well, I would encroach on. I would encroach on. It's like positive versus negative, right? It's like. Hold on, I'm trying to think this through in my head. Sorry, I got a little lost along the way. Which is this? They're willing to approach on rights republics. Yeah, I don't know. The Second Amendment and like hypothetically having slavery back feels like would be two wildly different areas, because one is like very adherent, like freeing slaves is very adherent to the spirit of, you know, the Declaration of Independence, the ideas that we were founded upon, and taking away guns wouldn't be. I think that just like if you step all the way back, that's a principle where you could draw a delineating line. If there's something just blatantly immoral, like slavery, yes, you should encroach on that as much as you can. But with the Second Amendment, like, there's nothing inherently immoral about owning a gun versus owning a human being. Like, that's just two wildly different things. Right, exactly. Right, like yeah, basically, yeah, exactly. Like, it's so different. Yeah. You can't compare taking away the rights of people and encroaching on that like taking away the rights of guns versus trying to give people rights via encroachment. It just seems like opposite, you know?
Racial animosity.
Yeah,
let's get these goddamn
pitting
cards.
of poor white people against black people is like just part of the strategy of the people in power, and they've always done it. And
liberal or
and it's
otherwise.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Well, there was
to
that governor in
watch,
Alabama that was like his
it's
stated strategy.
Unfortunate to watch the country like descend into that again. Racial issues are hard to tackle because it's we're very susceptible to it, and unfortunately,
I
backslid
didn't realize
into
I
a
got
period
that.
of white racial backlash again, where the people around the country are just. They're just like, I mean, the Trump administration literally just treats any black person as unqualified and fires them from the federal government. Like, that's what Pete Hegseth is doing in the Department of Defense. It's just like out and out racism,
It's like when Musk
it's like a racial purge of the government.
took down that guy's profile and just labeled it DEI metal.
I mean, I don't know the names off the top of my head, but yeah.
That sounds not true.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, because like I'll put it this way: even if it were true, it's so overt that like
they're being really overt about it. I mean, Donald Trump is going on television and going, planes are crashing because of DEI. So it's
but DEI
really,
is a philosophy, is an ideology.
He's saying because there are unqualified air traffic controllers because they were hired because they're people of color. It's racist. He's racist. He's a racist man, and he's issuing racist policy, and the entire country's going along with it because we're in a period of
I don't know if
backlash.
Trump's
When do you think
like
he became racist?
Racist.
He's been racist his whole fucking
I think
life.
it's just
How did he
like
win all those awards then? Like, or like those accolades and like.
I don't know what accolades he won. He's won accolades.
Yeah, it was like a civil rights leader awards.
If he's
and shit.
anything, he's probably Islamophobic.
Let me see if I can find something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's. I mean, awards are dumb, so I don't.
They are
dumb. I think he won them because awards are stupid. Like, I don't know. Bad job, awards committee, for giving the.
He did get the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, but there's a correction. It wasn't particularly over racial issues. I don't know what that means.
You love Trump so much. It's funny you're pulling up his awards.
I don't know if you think I
he's won so many racial awards.
I think it's weird that you think I love Trump.
I mean, you're here talking about how great his approval numbers are. Like,
for Trump, Jim was willing to say, "I'm actually not
Trump
free
is
speech."
Crushing. His numbers are up. And the rest of the press is like his numbers are down. And
I never said his numbers were up. I literally just told you right now because of the tariffs, his numbers have gone down.
Dude, look.
I went on Piers Morgan and said Trump's approval is absolutely down, and I said you don't got to look at corporate.
Also, they wouldn't let me separate the moral from the legal argument and insisted they were the same because apparently you cannot have your own beliefs of what the law means and what you want the law to be. That's dumb. Like, yeah, obviously, like, whenever we argue about something, it's always like the first we'll do the legal one and then the moral one. Like the South Sudan deportations. While they did them illegally, the underlying frame, like deporting someone to a third nation, is legal. Morally, probably shouldn't deport people fleeing a civil war to South fucking Sudan. But yeah, and like it doesn't help that they did it in an illegal manner, ignoring. They just had to wait 15 days. But again, like I said, like I think they're trying to build precedent for when you could ignore. Dude, I got called a fucking genocidal baby killer. All right, welcome. It's fucking the internet, man. Fucking make you lose your goddamn mind if you let it get to you.
Press. Take a look at Rasmussen. They love Trump, and they have Trump down 4 points.
Let me ask you something.
I don't think you watch my show.
I don't watch it that much. I've looked at like your YouTube headlines.
We've never said Trump's polls have recently been rebounding, but that's a fact statement from Newsweek aggregating like 3 or 4 different polls.
Yeah,
they've been
I'm
rebounding
not going to lie and
this
claim his
much.
polls are down if they're not down. And if his polls are down, I'll say they're down.
Okay, I mean, I
use
all
all
the
the
reporting I saw in the last 2 weeks, like, oh, his numbers are down. And I saw you were going, they're up. And I look at your YouTube headlines, and a lot of times it seems like, look, the easiest way to get people to click on YouTube is tell them that their side is winning. I have trouble getting sucked into this in my own YouTube headlines.
I just go by, and you know what I try to do? I try to avoid singular polls as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on Piers Morgan. He asked about this. Kerry Lake, of course, said, of course he's doing well. The polls are lying. I said, no, they're not. I was like, the issue is that people don't. The one thing that's challenging is that the polls are so dramatically different from each other that it's going to create this perception. But my point was simply track a single poll. Find one you trust. If Trump supporters love Rasmussen, okay, well, Rasmussen had Trump go down. So even if you think ABC is lying, is Rasmussen, who had Trump up yesterday? Well, he's down today. So Trump's approval went down with. Oh, come on! It went down with the tariffs. The tariffs were bad for him. But
the tariffs are bad. They're really stupid. He's losing his mind.
So, for instance, like Rasmussen currently has him up 3 points.
Yeah.
The challenging thing, I think, is like if you look at Economist and Big Data, they cover nearly the same span.
Mm-hmm.
+1, -8.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I'm like, I don't know how you track singular polls. And the aggregates are also confusing as well. So what I say is, I always show this. I'll always try to show all the polls in the aggregates. But then I'll say, let's just track an individual poll. Maybe it had Trump -10 yesterday. Maybe he's -12 today, showing a downward trend. But where the favorable poll?
But like, I don't watch your show that much. I click around. It seems like you support Trump generally. You're normally saying,
gave him a B+.
Here's why the thing that he did. Yeah, okay. So you like him generally.
He did a lot of bad things too.
So I'm saying, you know,
Name
he's
one.
behaving in an authoritarian fashion. He's abridging free speech. You're like, oh, but presidents in the past did that. They were being authoritarian and they were abridging free speech. And here's why Bush did it, and it's bad.
Well, that's
when Trump does
that's
it,
not
you
how
like
I phrased it. My phrasing was, do you think it's distinct from other administrations? Like,
You thought it was good when they were doing it before?
My question for you is, do you think it was good when they were doing it before?
It was bad.
Yeah, and my point is there are instances where you didn't care and instances where you did.
The tariffs are bad. No plan, no secondary actions, nothing, no using of existing leverage to make it. Yeah, we are in agreement on that. No contest there, brother. Yeah, if it's Tim Pool, it's the slop hours. Tim Pool's not gonna. And oh my God! And the American public is so reactionary, or it's like tariffs announced, stock market boom. Tariffs pause, whoop, 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 and consumer confidence has been like this. Oh my God. And people have no ability. A singular person has the ability to look like 3 months into the future. The public as a whole, none. It is lightning fast reactions. Just insane. I don't know how people can have such a lack of vision for the future. Then you have to raise the tax on the rich and the corporations. When a tariff is a tax, they already just raising the price instead of eating the tax. They will they already are raising taxes, or not taxes. Sorry, they're like I think it was like Walmart and Amazon were raising prices because of the tariffs. Oh my God, it's just such a shit show. And without a plan going into it, without communicating the plan to these large businesses, where it's like, hey, this is going to be announced, like this is going to happen in the near future, make plans accordingly. Like no one, since it's so reactionary, no one can plan even a week out, because who fucking knows what the law is going to be or the status is going to be of these tariffs tomorrow. Neither side has a solution. What do you mean? Like, the solution was not to do the tariffs. The solution was renegotiations using our existing frameworks. Yeah, the Democrats don't have vision too. That's a big, point against them. Like, the Democrats, too, it's just reaction. There's not a lot of proactive steps to say, here's an alternative plan. Here's some serious vision. It's a sad state of U.S. politics. Obviously, the person in power is going to have more of a limelight on them. But Christ, the reason I'm favoring the Democrats is because doing nothing is a better plan than this. Even though, yeah, there's some trade imbalance that should be addressed. At the stance today, doing nothing is a better plan than this. And I guess the argument to the contrary would be, well, at least someone's trying to do something, but the doing something could have been raising a stink, making it an electoral issue, much like the border was. Making it, putting that issue into the public eye, like the border, forced the Democrats to be like, okay, fuck, yeah, there is a problem there. We're going to do something now. You can do that. It doesn't have to be whatever the fuck is going on right now.
So again, I think
I wasn't on this show then, so I cared about it then.
Let me. So Piers Morgan had a great question for me when I went on the show, and I keep bringing him up, but he does a good show. It's kind of sensational, but he asked me how I thought Trump was doing, and I said B+. I think that the universal tariff thing is I'm skeptical of it. It's a little wonky. Selective tariffs I think are a good thing. And then Piers asked me, would you say the same thing about Joe Biden if he did this? I said, of course not. Probably not. And the issue is that Donald Trump's moral positions more largely reflect my own. Mm-hmm. And just like liberals who would defend Biden, we're more forgiving of the individual who does errors and makes mistakes if they're more in line with our worldview. So if Joe Biden, like the Afghanistan debacle, the Burisma scandal, Nord Stream, all of these things, Keystone Pipeline, I'd look at as a litany of negative compounded with another negative. I'd say it's bad. Donald Trump, I see, is doing a spattering of bad things, but largely good things. So I say I can tolerate some bad things from Trump. I'm not going to condemn his whole presidency.
Measure of degree. So you're assign a rating 1 through 10.
Tribalism on your part, you're like, he's my guy. I agree with him about. I don't know what do you really like? You hate trans people or whatever, and so.
Well, I'll reiterate it, right? I praised Joe Biden when he was fighting to remove ATM fees. Mm-hmm. But you have
I didn't know about that. That's huge.
The Biden administration that I see, and so when he does something wrong, I'm going to say one more grain of sand in the heap of the bad things he's doing. With Donald Trump, the policies enacted, I largely agree with. So when he does a bad thing, I say, yeah, that's kind of bad. But, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for now, and we'll see what happens.
Well, you're also talking about
liberals do the same thing on all their issues. It's not unique to me or you or any other person. Obviously,
you're talking about human psychology. When someone's on your side, generally you forgive.
Liberals are not a monolith. Conservatives
I don't forgive
are not
the bad things. I'm saying we tolerate them.
Mm-hmm,
we say
those are close to each other, but sure.
Well, the difference is I'm not going to forgive Donald Trump for
this
he's accused of killing a 7-year-old
deflates
American
me.
girl in Yemen. I want that criminally investigated. I'm not going to forgive him for 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria in his first term. That was ludicrous that he thought that was going to be good, and it's ridiculous the media praised him for it. These things always deserve condemnation. In fact, I'll criticize him now because he said to me personally in an interview he wouldn't bomb Yemen, and then he did. Now he's claiming he's not going to do it anymore, but that deserves criticism. I don't need to forgive him for that. I will challenge him because of it and demand he do better.
Sorry.
I see
what's the issue
what
with
he's done as
bombing
things I want
Houthi
to happen,
sites?
and the bad things should be called out when they are. I'm not going to condemn his presidency
Unless
over
this
the bad
was
things. I will criticize them.
Pre-attacks
For Joe Biden, I see a litany of bad
the
things.
Suez?
I condemn largely what he's doing. Periodically he gets praised for the things that he's trying to do, and I'll say, look, that's a good thing, right? ATM fees are fucked up, and that's bullshit.
That is
Attacks
true.
on the poor through the corporate
Bro,
banking
paying
system.
$3 to take out 20
However,
bucks.
Biden,
fucked up.
look, when he defies the Supreme Court over the student loan thing or tries to decree an amendment, the criticism there is you don't have the authority to do that, to just decree an amendment. That's a ridiculous
Unauthorized
overreach.
executive only military action
When the
using
courts
the
say you
Navy
can't
is the
forgive
issue.
student
Okay.
loans twice, and he does it
Gotcha.
anyway, we're like, holy crap, look at what he is doing once again. With Donald Trump, we say, yeah, he shouldn't have done that with Abrigo Garcia. That was wrong. What's the solution here? Okay. Let's just try and mitigate that, but it's harmless error.
So
there's a difference in this the
legally
scale and scope of
probably not
actions
sound. Although that is kind of the way
making such a big deal out of it.
Make an appeal to precedent. That is kind of the way we've been doing it.
It's a political attack against Democrats.
Yeah, it's
I think,
and against immigrants.
Illegal immigrants.
So is it? So when you do like a military operation versus a full-scale war, because can you be at war with a non-governing group? Are the Houthis even the governance of Yemen at this point? Hell, this is just so fucked. Like, but what about like Vietnam and Korea and Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran and all that? Yemen. So this is the part that the Houthis control. This is the rest of Yemen. Houthi control has been shrinking a fuck ton. It used to be like all of this. But like doing retaliatory strike, welcome to war powers resolution, and a bunch of other. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I don't know. I think retaliating against Houthi SAM sites, or not SAM sites, not surface-to-air air missiles, but like missile sites or rocket sites, I think that could probably be of power for executive. It's just like a quick response thing that the executive could do, because if you got to bring it to Congress, that would take a while and diminish it, but it is what it is. Can only change the interpretation of that law. Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I think the executive should have some deference in smaller operations like this, like the Vietnam War. That might be a bit much, to say the least. But yeah, I don't know. Like it is an attack on international shipping lanes and U.S. flagged boats. I think retaliation is probably in order. This though there's finally aid coming in. Now, technically, Trump could invade Canada. Under what pretense though? Because that's different. Like I don't know. Like, what is Canada like? What I'm saying is the Houthi attacks, that was the provocation from them, and I think we have the right to respond quickly and decisively, versus invading Canada, which is just they haven't done shit to us. I think there's a clear distinction there, but I'm sure you can enlighten me on the legal aspect of that.
Well,
there's a distinction.
Yeah, and also
for hoarding naval
foreign students who are here studying.
You got me.
And
I got baited.
Pronged attack against all types of immigrants. Like he's trying to frighten every type of immigrant in America. They've gone down the list, when he's talking to Bukele and is like, oh, you gotta make a prison for citizens too,
Yeah, that was wrong. Bad thing.
He's doing that on purpose to frighten people. That's what I'm talking about with authoritarianism, and I think that's bad.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's bad too.
Oh, cool.
Indeed.
Great.
Yeah, we've had that conversation many a night.
Okay, and there's not a substantial
in fact,
reason.
The Trump base is split on whether he should or should not be doing it. Half of them are saying, no way.
Are you saying he could invent a substantial reason, and who decides if it's a substantial reason? The courts?
Clearly.
Because they're never going to let that fly.
Authoritarian.
Yeah, well, they came for the Jews and I said nothing, it's...
this is how I feel.
People voted for this guy he doesn't give a shit about anybody. He wants to just throw anyone he doesn't like away to El Salvador and lock him up, and, that's the deal the American public made, unfortunately.
For me, I remember when, Barack Obama killed 4 American citizens. And his staffers publicly stated, too bad. One of them was a 16-year-old American citizen named
What do you mean would
Abdulrahman
be a
al-Awlaki.
political question?
Was it a drone strike situation?
The drone strike in Yemen, authorized by Barack Obama.
I thought federal courts.
And their response to the extrajudicial assassination of
I
a
thought the courts
16-year-old
had
American who was not
the
a
right
criminal,
to
not wanted
hear.
for anything,
Federal
was,
courts had the right to hear things if they were
we were trying to kill
political
somebody
questions.
else. So it's like country we're not at war with was bombed, killing dozens of or several civilians. I don't know the
It's a horrible program.
Terrible. And these people that are complaining about Trump are just it's platitude. It's not real. Now I'm not saying you. I'm saying
because I also complained about the drone strikes.
Indeed, and every liberal I talk with is like, yeah, that we all condemn that. And I'm like, I think there's a general agreement among the populist factions of left and right. We are mad at Obama for doing these things, but the establishment forces that are empowered never gave a shit, and that includes the Republicans. So, like recently, I was complaining to Shri Tanadar, who was trying to impeach Trump, and I said, I'll give you this. I will give you my full support of your articles of impeachment against Trump if you also draft retroactive impeachment against Obama for the extrajudicial assassinations of American citizens. He said no. And I said,
"What is retroactive impeachment?"
It is, in fact. So, because of presidential immunity, you can't go after Obama for having killed a 16-year-old American citizen.
Like the new Supreme Court ruling, you can no longer do it, or presidential immunity.
Presidential immunity in general, it was presumed to be the case.
Oh, fuck off.
There is, however, an argument that you can't even impeach at this point. But I believe the general legal consensus is, in order to convict a president for actions conducted while president, he has to be impeached and convicted for those actions first. Nobody, I think, even the people who don't want to bring it up, I think everybody would agree Barack Obama should not have killed that 16-year-old American citizen. And if it was an accident, well, I'm sorry, but if you accidentally run somebody over, you get some kind of penalty. Even if it's like a fine, I think, you might get some kind of court supervision or revocation of license. I said, look, I'll tell you what, let's impeach Trump. Do me a favor. Draft articles of impeachment for Barack Obama for the extrajudicial assassination of American citizens and keep it specific to Abdulrahman al-Awlaki. Because you want to argue Anwar and the other guys who are jihadis or whatever, but Americans, fine. Just a 16-year-old. He said, no. He says, I'm focused on here and now. And I said, if he's impeached and convicted, we can get criminal charges for a president who murdered an American, even if it was negligence or accidental. He said, listen, I'm concerned about now. I was like, exactly. And you know what? Not a single Republican would do it either. Because when it comes to the executive authority, what we have learned over the past 50 years since the end of World War II is every politician in this country will get on their knees and lick the feet of the president and allow them to blow up whatever fucking country they want.
Yeah,
and
but then who is the president? But then who is the expert? It's just kind of the way it goes, no? Subject needs to was enough based on the subjective clause of legislation. But then it just, exists in a gray area forever? Okay, then so it always defers to whoever seizes the power. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but this is something that but it is the court's job to interpret the law, and it's the executive's job to enforce it. So, if Congress writes that there has to be substantial reason, and the president or the executive goes and says, we think this is a substantial reason, the third branch, the court, is there to interpret the meaning of that substantial reason. Right? Yeah.
Member of Congress.
I'm not saying that's right.
Well, to be fair, Thomas
saying
Massie would probably say no. But they all just allow it to happen. And it's bullshit.
Yeah, and I guess I don't understand why you are so supportive of Trump, because part of his entire
Dismantling
part of his entire presidency is about expanding the executive power of the president. Like that's the whole Heritage Foundation's whole thing, the imperial presidency. They're trying to increase the amount of impunity that the president has and remove checks and balances, which I think is the few that did exist, which I think is bad.
Until Congress makes a more specific law, it does fall to the courts to interpret it. Then the court decides every decision based on that, since they can then overrule anything where deference or subjective judgment is made. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, unless Congress makes it more specific, that is the job of the judiciary, is to interpret the law and determine whether or not the executive's enforcement is constitutional. Like, I think it falls back on Congress to get off their fucking asses and be more specific in the laws they write. But as it stands, the judiciary does determine where that gray area extends. It's Congress's job to limit that gray area. Well, right, but when the merit determines the legality of it, well, I mean, wouldn't it be like if the executive does something and the only clause they have to adhere to is substantial reason, it would be the court's job to determine what is substantial reason. Which is, I'm not saying that's good, and Congress should definitely make something more specific than that, but that's not like the executive can't win. I'm just saying, I think it falls back on Congress to be more specific in the laws they write, instead of handing over the power, like saying, all right, judiciary, executive, you guys fight this out.
Like Congress is more,
or it would be the legislature's job to determine as that is done with the threshold for an amendment. Right, that's what I'm saying. Unless they have said, like, unless they've passed something that says this is what this means specifically, the interpretation, since it's so gray, that falls to the judiciary until Congress actually passes something that says this is the definition. Like, it goes back to what we're talking about a million times, that Congress is lazy fucks and should be more specific. And not pass like nebulous fucking laws. The legislature didn't have to pass something. The Supreme Court said that isn't on them to determine if the proposed amendment was still valid and legally ratified. Sorry, expand on what you mean by that. Well, yeah, isn't it the court's job to determine if something is legal? But what I'm saying is, as it pertains to the executive being able to declare war, or not declare war, but do like operations without congressional approval, Congress would probably have the power to define where that line is. But until they do, it's up to the executive, and then it falls on the courts to challenge it, to start to draw that line. And sure, the Supreme Court doesn't like when courts stop a decision because of a disagreement with the reason. Right. Okay, so then the executive would appeal it. Again, it just falls on Congress to be more specific with their shit. It doesn't like when courts stop a decision based on disagreement with the reason. Yeah, but again, my argument is it falls on Congress to put some fucking legwork in to these goddamn laws so we don't end up in this situation.
Supine than it was during the Obama years. They're not even protecting their power as a branch.
I think they were always pretending. I think it was always
it sure seems like it's at a fucking ebb, man. You know?
The Republicans right now have a 2-seat majority and
like Trump's impounding money that Congress has already spent, right? It's bizarre.
So the challenge is,
I would think that the timeline would be the president orders it, it goes through, then it's challenged. I don't think the court would be able to get to a decision in time, especially this executive. But I see I take your point. Sure, the president orders a strike on a group abroad, but the court disagrees and stops that operation, resulting in the court's control of the military. Yeah, that is well beyond their scope. I think it is within their scope, though, to determine whether or not it was legal to do so after the fact. And kind of do a, hey, for next time, this is just starting to zero in on what the line is.
You've got two rogue branches, the judiciary and the executive, by this argument.
That's true.
I think Trump is applying the language of the executive branch in any way that's beneficial to him to enable himself to do these things. And actually, I think that's what Kristi Noem actually said to me.
The fuck?
That they're going to use the language of whatever is codified to try and get these deportations through. The problem is you've got a judiciary that is rogue at the same time, and Congress has abdicated their responsibility for checking either branches. What do you do?
What the fuck?
I think largely you'll find there's this diehard MAGA base, which is like Trump can do no wrong. You'll find the liberal base saying Trump is clearly everything is wrong. And then you'll find this
let's fucking go.
No one's doing what they're supposed to.
Oh my God. 8.5 hours. 23,654 tries. Oh. Wham. Let's fucking go. I never have to do that again. Oh my God. Okay. Let's fucking go. Oh yeah. That's going on the TikTok. Holy shit.
supposed to be doing, and it's just fucked. It's just pure chaos. And that's not like Chuck Schumer says that's Trump, and I'm like, oh please, it's everybody. The issue then is the liberal side of things can allow Trump to make his assertions under like the Alien
Sorry, expand on that. Sorry, just there's so much going on in the world. Right at the end of the opinion prior to the dissent does actually clarify legal set. Okay. Well, I mean, I can go and read it after this, or if you'd be so kind as to just give me the short and skinny. Oh, there we go. Hence, persons born out of the United States remaining subjects to the Emperor of China. Chinese persons born out of the United States remaining subjects of the Emperor of China and not having become citizens of the United States are entitled to the protection of and owe allegiance to the United States so long as they are permitted to by the United States reside here and are subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the same sense as all other aliens residing in the United States. Born out of the United States remaining subjects and not having become are entitled to the protection of and owe allegiance to the U.S. so long as they are permitted by the U.S. to reside. Okay. They are subject to the... Okay. So that's a bit broader than... That applies to a lot more people. So what the fuck? Narrower? Oh, yeah, right. Permitted to reside. So it wouldn't qualify for illegal statuses. It would only qualify for like a legal. So like I would say asylum. So asylum counts. Temporary protected status, maybe. Withholding of removal, maybe. But undocumented, no. Travel visas, no. Student visas, probably not. H-1B, probably. I don't know. It depends on reside, I guess. H-1B, reside here for 6 years. Yeah, yeah. So H-2B would probably be no. I would be curious how that comes down, because asylum seems like a pretty clear yes. Like you are allowed to reside here. There's a path towards citizenship and a permit, but withholding of removal would, because you are allowed to reside, but there's kind of a defer, like, yeah, that is true. That is another thing where, like, we've kind of made a moral judgment on that, which is different from the legal definition. And the law just was never updated. Huh. Yeah. Now that is interesting. All right. Yeah, so that'll have to go into the... Jeez. What a world.
Enemies Act without challenge, and then Trump steamrolls them. They're not going to do that. Trump could allow the judiciary to enact universal injunctions unconstitutionally and get steamrolled. He's not going to do that. Congress isn't doing anything. So there's no check or balance between either of these branches, and it's just going to come to a point. We're in a perpetual state of constitutional crisis until one side finally says, I don't think it matters anymore. What? what you say at all.
Do a double check in a moment.
I would argue that there's.
I mean, that's what they're currently doing.
Both sides, both the executive and the judiciary are doing this.
I mean, the judiciary, like, they
have no authority for universal injunctions.
Seems pretty.
But
then,
to me,
so permitted by the United States to reside here. Yeah. So probably not a transient status, but I guess what you would do is, I guess what a lot of people do is come here, claim asylum, either affirmatively or defensively. Pray to God you win the case, but if you don't, okay. Yeah. Chinese person born out of the United States. Many subjects in the American China not even considered the United States. Yeah, that seems pretty clear cut.
what it sounds like is you're participating in the campaign by the executive branch to discredit the judiciary. Now, I'm not going to like go to town, go to the mattresses for like any particular injunction, but like the observation that I'll make is that weakening the judiciary, setting the legal groundwork for why, they can defy any particular court order they want to, because if it goes against the Trump administration, it's de facto illegal.
But they're co-equal branches, right?
And then B, destroying the civil service. Those are just basic authoritarian steps. And that's what Trump is doing. I personally, I'm not like...
That's not an argument.
I'm not as like apocalyptic currently as a lot of really frightened liberals are, who are like, we're descending into Nazism or whatever, because I think Trump is like ultimately a lot weaker than that, and I think he's like kind of too old and dumb to like really do it. Like he's losing his mind, It's what's really funny? It's very funny to see I came here from LA, and like a couple days ago he had that truth post about like we need to put 100% tariff on movies, on foreign movies. And then the Hollywood press for like the next 4 days was like, oh no, like what does that mean? What's gonna happen? Like, oh, John Voight has a plan, like all this shit. And I'm like, do you guys think that he remembers posting that? Like the man is like on pills or something. Like he got a text from John Voight about like, you should do this. He says, we're gonna put 100% tariff. One of the fucking cabinet guys goes, we're right on it, sir. And then they're just waiting for him to forget about it, because the idea of putting a tariff on movies doesn't even make physical sense. They don't come here by fucking boat. Like, what are you talking
DVDs,
about?
maybe.
People are trying to make sense of like the Mad King's like drool coming out of his
True,
mouth.
isn't tariffs only for like physical goods?
Like, what if a movie is based in Africa? It's like Safari featuring Tom Cruise, but you can't do it because you're filming in Africa. It's like, well,
and also every film is, it's like any other product. They're made multinationally, like every Marvel movie, they ship all the footage off to Korea, to do the CGI, right?
So this is the real argument. I think the issue is, the saying has been for a long time that the left takes Trump literally but not seriously, and the right takes him seriously but not literally. So the question is, what does that mean? Like, the question is, what's going to happen from Trump's directive? You can't tariff a movie. How? However, he can find ways to penalize offshoring of CGI or choosing to film Chicago, but in Vancouver.
But he's not going to do that because he doesn't have coherent policy about literally anything. Even tariffs, the one thing that he like, the regular tariffs, right? The one thing he really cares about, he's just fucking winging it, like saying random shit, doing math that doesn't make any sense, making deals, canceling deals, like just causing chaos, because he has the attention span of a gnat. The reciprocal tariff stuff where they like did it based on the trade deficit and all that shit.
But it was on the chart
again.
The chart said,
"Oh my god,
you're going to stump for the chart. You're going to back up the chart."
The chart had
they didn't argue a thing that was literally on the picture they showed.
Oh yeah. The math was very dumb.
The math they presented said including trade imbalance and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's like they said, here's our and then someone did the math and they were like, he basically took existing tariffs and then added in the trade deficit.
Yeah.
And then gave us a number. And it's like,
so you exist in like an info ecosystem where what he did made sense. Like you hear people saying, oh, this makes sense, and you felt that those those charts,
out of respect to Adam here,
you said the math didn't make sense because he was using the trade deficit, and all I said was it said on the chart he showed the trade deficit.
I guess would be more.
Well, and that's a stupid way
a fact point,
to
not an
make
opinion.
to make a tariff. I'm
not giving you my opinion, I'm giving you a fact point.
Yeah, the policy making is
God, this is
chaotic
so
and
fucking
erratic. It
precise.
has no thought process behind it. So the idea that the idea that Trump that's a judgment on my part.
Like, hold on.
The idea that my point is just the idea that Trump would like look at Hollywood and go, oh, there's like a problem here. What if we disincentivize them from doing? That's not how he operates. I agree. He doesn't actually make
he saw it on
real
Fox News.
policy. He was
watching Laura
like does
Ingraham.
loyalty tests. He does.
He just sees Hollywood liberals
misunderstands
and it's like,
things. He
yep,
has a whim,
kill 'em.
and people.
Do you remember?
He forgets.
Do you remember the story in the tariffs where they claimed that Trump was tariffing an island only inhabited by penguins?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know that's not true, right?
Okay.
So this is the challenge we face communication-wise.
Okay,
There are a
but
couple islands
degrees,
that operate
Tim.
companies, but don't have a living population that we do import from. So Trump imposed a tariff on any region that he could. That was the point, closing loopholes. The corporate press, like Newsweek, CNN, they all, and prominent liberal personalities started running this lie that Donald Trump was tariffing a island with only penguins on it, which is, we call that factual but not truthful.
There's businesses that are on this island.
Fishing refineries, and they do ship products to the island as corporations, and then when they're done, they transport them to the United States. Trump wants a tariff on anyone who's trying to use that island loophole. But instead, the media just claimed he was so stupid and didn't think about his plan. And I'm like, why don't you just say you don't like the tariffs? I don't know why you have to make up that weird story.
Well, I mean, everything about them was senseless. This was simply the silliest detail without.
But that's what discredits the actual argument. Look, I think the universal tariffs were a bad idea. I think selective tariffs on like particular products on nations can make sense, especially like Canada or China. Universal tariffs seemed like a scattershot that was going to cause more problems in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that. Nobody fucking cares. The right goes, interesting point, Tim, but our problem is the left is lying about what he's doing. And then I go to the left and they go, you're wrong, our story is right. And I'm like, but that's not true. It's this shit all over again of the first Trump term of, quote, stop making me defend Trump was the trope, where Trump would do something that was like, I wonder why he did that. The left would then lie about what he did. And when we come out and say, but he didn't do that, they'd say, stop defending Trump. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like the very fine people hoax, the the koi fish hoax, the fucking injecting bleach stuff. It's like, bro, Donald Trump dumped food into a fish pond after Shinzo Abe did. Why are you trying to make that
Okay,
an
come
story?
on.
It was like, it's all of these hoaxes. The very fine people hoax.
I mean, I remember the line. Yeah,
Trump never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides,
except the neo-Nazis and white nationalists who should be condemned totally.
He said that.
Holy
shit! I think he did say that. Yeah,
brother, it is.
I don't live in your bubble, man. I don't.
You don't live in the fucking news, dude. Come the fuck on.
Jesus.
You don't read the fucking news.
Okay.
This is what
relax.
Blows my mind.
No, I just don't have
Snopes.
I don't have your.
No, Trump did not call neo-Nazis, white supremacists, very fine people, bro. It's been almost 10 years, and you still think he did. That's what's fucked
I
up.
didn't say I think he did. I just don't know what you're talking about because I don't like.
Joe
I don't
Biden.
listen to your shit.
It's not about listening to my shit, bro. It's reading the
Joe
news.
Biden?
It's fact checking, bro. I got Snopes for you. They're not a conservative publication. Even Snopes was like, guys, stop saying this.
I don't know why you're shouting at me. I was just asking you to explain.
Because the issue we have, and I apologize, because I'm not trying to shout at you. I'm shouting in exasperation that we've had two liberals on in the past 2 weeks who didn't know this. And I'm just like, for the love of holy, I just, all I do all day is I read probably 500 news articles every single day from CNN, the New York Times, MSNBC, and all their aggregates. And then liberals come on and they believe things that were debunked 8 years ago.
I didn't say I believed it. I was just asking what you were talking about.
You didn't know this.
Yeah, I don't know everything that you know.
But this is what Biden launched his campaign on. Biden made a public announcement to launch his presidency in 2020 off of this lie. And you didn't know that. 5 years later.
I don't know why you're getting on me about this, but
it's again, I apologize. I'm not trying to get on you. It's the exasperation largely with liberals.
This doesn't hold any sway
when
for
this
me.
happened, and like the Covington kids hoax. Remember that one?
No.
Kids on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Back, this is 7 years ago, and
and the kid that was smirking or whatever.
the Native American guy goes up in his face, banging a drum.
Yeah.
And CNN gets sued over it. All these outlets, all these journalists were pushing this lie, and I was just thinking to myself,
Yeah, no, Resistance 1.0 stuff was cringy, sure, yeah.
But I mean, here we are today. We had a journalist on. She's a Brooklyn journalist, and I thought she was very nice. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but she was like, no, Trump did this. And we're just like, I don't understand how we've come to this point where there are so many stories like the Penguin Island hoax, Very Fine People hoax, Covington injecting bleach, Maryland man. It's like the media just lies and the liberals believe all of it.
Look, man.
What else you got from me, Master Liberty?
So I'll tell you what it looks like from my side, which is that it looks like Trump does stuff that is either completely fucking moronic or completely indefensible, right? And then you guys find one detail, right, where you reinterpret or you find a place where like, oh, the liberal media went too far. Yeah, sure, whatever. And then like harp on that one little point forever. And then miss like the larger thing that's happening to distract from it. In the same way that, again, we're talking about Rumesa Ozturk, and it's like, was it legally possible? And like, blah, blah, blah. And like, what's the narrow legal justification when it's like, do we want to be a country where, you
My
can
name is
come here
Brian.
and speak your mind or not?
This guy.
I don't want to talk about Brian Tyler Cohen.
You know who he is?
Yeah, of course. But let's talk about something else. Do we have to talk about what some other guy who's not me said?
I'm not talking about what he said.
Okay.
I'm making a point where he said you guys harp on one thing.
Sure.
Okay. This guy, David Pakman as well, and many of the other most prominent liberal podcasts.
I won't defend any of these people.
That is true. When AI is wrong, it's like, oh, sorry. I guess this is what I thought, and I'll change in the future. It's a little sad. Fuck. Yeah, I've been fucking dude, Grok. I don't know. I've been what I've been enjoying about AI is when Grok will like just go against whatever Musk says, or like this like not conservative, like MAGA folk will cite Grok, and then when you ask Grok the question, it'll be like, no, that's wrong. It's just that's been fun for me. AI is certainly something. Makes good slop, but I don't know. It's got a ways to go before it's anything.
And that's fine. I'm only bringing this up because you made the point that you guys find one thing and then harp on that. I don't.
I don't. Look, dude, I'm just a little bored of this, like, sort of 10 minutes of conversation because I'm like, I don't say this stuff, and like, it feels like
you just
this
said
is a thing to like fill air with rather than talking about what's actually happening.
You
it's
just
to complain
accused
about
me of
what the
doing
liberal
something.
media says. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Should I just say?
Okay.
Or should I
make
have a
your points,
conversation?
Make your points. Your show. It's cool.
What we've been seeing prominently, there are three areas in the podcasting space. There is the liberal, like this guy, where every single video he makes is Trump. Literally every single one. Not to be fair, figuratively, because like every 10th video might be one other person. All just generic screenshots of Trump. Hey, look, Cory Booker, and nothing else. And he gets 200 million views per month. Okay, I do a show where we talk about whatever the news may be, which includes AI, solar storms. We talked about power outages, India, Pakistan. Talk about everything. Trump comes up prominently. He's the president, but we don't defend literally everything he does. But you come and say, you guys do it as if I am.
Cover a lot of ground for it, Tim.
My concern is when I look at the prominent left podcasts, they do. There's a distinction between the left and the right that I think is important. The left calls the right everyone from anarchists to neo-Nazis, which clearly don't align. It makes no sense. There's sovereign citizen anarchists with, nebulous political views beyond that, called the right wing. There's
You
neo-Nazis
don't think
called
you
the right wing.
caricature the left at all? You
I
don't
thought
think
the
you lump them all
anarchists
in
were,
together?
like,
You don't think you engage
left,
in,
but
We do not.
Same. Okay.
For instance, we often make the distinction that leftists are pro-guns and liberals are not. We recognize the distinction between a progressive and a moderate liberal, or like Gavin Newsom and, say, an Antifa protester. They're very distinct.
Yeah.
And so we always draw that distinction. Liberals, where I will lump them together, do not. So this is like, but you literally are, because you're saying that like liberals do that to the right.
I am sitting here. You'd probably define me as a liberal or a leftist or
This is
progressive,
anecdotal.
or
It's
whatever
not-
you want to say. But like, I also believe myself to have a nuanced view of the variety of political positions on the right. Right.
And the point I'm bringing up is not pertaining to you as an individual,
Mm-hmm.
because we understand that it could be granular. The point I'm making is, say, ADL, for instance, and other left-aligned political organizations use the phrase "the right" to represent anything not left.
I wouldn't define the ADL as a left political organization at this point, but
Perhaps I would agree with, yeah. Like at this point, it's very weird. Where
I mean, yeah, the
pro-Israel,
the politics of to me, it's less about Israel. It's more about what's happening in Gaza specifically, and
Yes,
like that, But yeah, is the and they've been like bizarrely sort of pro-Trump in all these like weird ways. Oh yeah, they came out when they were like tweeting about Elon's Heil Hitler salute, going, don't worry about this too much. Like it's fine. Like that's very odd.
it's Israel. Elon has been pro-Israel. He's been making statements in favor of them. And so I think especially when we're talking about
Has
like Romesa
Elon
and all that
said
stuff,
anything about-
Israel is the issue. The reason why they wanted to ban TikTok is because of Israel. And when they come out and make these arguments about anti-Semitism, they're not talking about any other bigotry or racism.
Is this
so
Ghana?
I'll agree with you on the ADL thing. As of now, they're leaning more into Trump camp because Trump is pro-Israel.
Yeah, the politics of like, there's some really weird shit happening with politics when they go after a student protester, right? Because I look at Trump's coalition and go, he's got a lot of fucking anti-Semites on his side for sure. Like all the anti-Semites are definitely Trump fans, but so are the like fascist Israeli, pro-Israeli people.
The anti-Semitic right hates Trump.
That is true.
Go watch their live streams. I don't want to say their names because it just invites brigading for either of us.
Mm-hmm.
But
the white
they're
nationalist
harder
Christian right wanted Trump to lose. In fact, they were pro-Biden.
No,
and not because
they weren't. They were pro-Trump. They thought he was going to turn on Israel, and they were wrong.
because they thought Biden was good. We get the. So
We?
here's why I try to be careful on this matter, because you get it. You're going to get trolled. You're going to get death threats. You're going to get blasted. We were getting tons of chats on IRL where they were like, I would rather Biden win because at least he is bad on Israel. That's the statement these people were making. And so there is this.
Sure, there's some who feel that way, yeah.
Watch some of their streams and how they talk about Trump.
Bro.
Trump's pro-Israel. They're mad. They're very mad.
That doesn't make them pro-Biden.
It's sort of weirdly scrambled.
It is. Have you seen?
Because there's definitely also anti-Semites in his coalition, like the people at that rally.
It was Ghana.
Have you seen? Let me see if I can find this. There's a meme. Here we go. What is this flag? Let me show you this picture. This is the new horseshoe theory.
Wait, what? Sorry. Oh, left, right.
Honestly,
I'm confused as to the axis.
So there's Ukraine, Russia, and Israel, Palestine, and then it's like on the left,
Wait.
the moderate.
Okay, this flag. Okay, actually, wait. Okay, this is probably because I probably put myself like right on this line here, maybe here. That's not a. That is funny.
Are pro-Israel, but then from the moderate right to the conservatives are pro-Israel,
It's the Parthenon.
but the far right are pro-Palestine, and the centrist, like the more moderate, I shouldn't say moderate, but the left to the far left are pro-Palestine. Then you have on the Ukraine-Russia axis, moderate conservatives are pro-Ukraine, but largely the conservative to far right is pro-Russia. And then on the left, it's largely pro-Ukraine, except for the far left, that's pro-Russia. They call this the new horseshoe theory as a joke.
Yeah, and it's the problem with
All right, not a bad day,
nationalism. When it gets involved in the political system of a country, is it like scrambles everything, and you get like all these weird alliances, and it becomes very hard to parse out like who's connected to who. So when you guys were being paid by the Russian government, you didn't know.
We never got paid by the Russian government.
But the Russian government paid Tenet Media, and they paid you.
They didn't.
They didn't pay you. I never
got paid by the Russian government.
Not
The
directly.
case, as far as I know, has been dropped.
But I thought that you were making statements like, "Oh, we were the victims of
Should
being."
this prove to be true, we were defrauded and victimized.
Oh,
But I guess the challenge is right
Tim.
now, the Trump administration has no priority in going over a story they don't give a shit about. But the Biden admin dropped it.
Oh, okay, yeah. They didn't go forward on the prosecution.
So I don't know exactly. What I can say, and this is what the challenge is that my understanding is during the Biden administration they dropped it. I don't know because we're not party to anything having to do with it.
But like when they were like, I saw
there's
a thing in the
that. My bad. Oh.
Guardian about
My bit rate dropped
someone
there?
had like told like RT or whatever had like asked Tenet Media, oh, could we do some anti-Ukraine story? And then Tenet Media is like, oh yes, one of our people will get on that.
Was not RT, but the evidence has never been released. It's been denied. So what
of course, it's been denied, but
Well, I mean, but this is the challenge.
But you were doing content that's like broadly consonant with what the Russian government wanted to be said about Ukraine, right?
I mean,
like
this podcast that we're on right now was licensed to Tenet Media.
Which was being paid by the Russian government.
That's not true.
Okay, I think it probably was, but
I mean, maybe they dropped it, and there's no evidence it was ever true. So I don't know how you resolve that circumstance. But I'll put it this way: this podcast that we're currently on right now, we host a variety of subjects. From we did one on polar shifts, we did one on theology, we did one on aliens, we did one on cryptozoology. None of that had anything necessarily to do with politics. We did talk Israel, Palestine. Dave Rubin, for instance, had a contract with them for licensing, I think, for half a year, where he did he did reaction content to viral videos, like a woman getting pulled over because she had too much milk in her car, some weird shit like that. So it was a particularly strange circumstance. The narrative that emerged from it is largely fake. So this is a show that is owned by me, has been owned by me for a decade. We've produced for years, and a Tennessee company approached us to buy a license for it. Non-exclusive, meaning we distributed wherever we want, but they also wanted to live stream it. They had no say or control in anything we had to do, and they bought a license. Fox News lied about it. The left continues to lie about it. I think it's largely just... I'm not going to get conspiratorial on what happened because I honestly don't know. The case has completely been dropped as far as I can tell. I suppose I could put in a request for the Trump DOJ to investigate why they did it and why they dropped it.
Yeah.
But I mean, so let's look about what you have right now is an indictment of 2 Russians without any charges to Americans with no evidence that anything actually happened. I mean, if you want it to be true, you can say it is, but there's no evidence anything actually happened.
Do you think Russia should have invaded Ukraine? You think that was good? No.
No, I think Russia's a bunch of. I think the Russian government. I say this even like China. Yeah. The governments are the shitheads. I think Putin is a despot who has used manipulative means like killing his political opponents to retain power.
Yeah.
I think he shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. I think Russia lost the soft power battle and resorted to violence because they were losing an expansive cultural victory from the West. And I think the outcome was inevitable to anybody in military because Russia's never going to give up the Black Sea. But I think Russia's a bunch of shitheads. I just don't think we should be involved in it. But that's not even like a thing we talk about on the regular. A lot of people on the left latched onto one video I did where Germany accused Ukraine of bombing Nord Stream and accused Ukrainian citizen of criminal actions against NATO, to which I said, if this was sanctioned by Ukraine, that makes them an enemy of ours. I mean, but let's be literal. If the Ukrainian government sanctioned an attack on NATO resources, that would literally make them an enemy of this country. People took that and they were like, aha! And I'm like, but that's a fact statement. Germany accused this Ukrainian national of bombing Nord Stream. Germany is NATO. Like, what am I supposed to say? Mm-hmm. So, the long story short is I look forward to anybody digging up what happened with the Tenet thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you lucked out. That's great. If it was dropped and like nobody.
But it sounds like there's no case. There's no story.
Yeah, that's great for you.
But why would it have been good or bad in the long run?
Well, it could have been bad if the case had gone forward and it could have turned up, some...
I wanted to keep going.
Okay. Do you really? I wouldn't want it to keep going. I would be like, shit, sick, give me the money. You know what I mean? Like, I one of the reasons I wanted to come, I was just curious to see your operation here, You're like...
The money that we were paid by Tenet is completely negligible. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
shut
and,
up.
and this is what a lot of people don't realize. I don't know how much you were getting paid for your shows. I mean, your shows were pretty big.
Yeah, that was in the days that cable still existed, before it was all destroyed by.
But I mean, we do ad reads sometimes for $50,000.
Yeah.
So when the story came out, the insinuation was that like, oh, holy shit, Tim Pool is getting $100,000 to license a show.
Well, that was literally printed in the press that it was $100,000.
The indictment said it,
Well, it was
but I have no problem saying like,
whatever.
we got a license for $100K. It was a market rate negotiated by lawyers. That's why Dave Rubin and several others in it negotiated the exact same rates, independent of us. You have to take a look at like, for instance, this show is on average 7th biggest live stream in the country. So like, what do you think you're going to sell an ad for on the 7th biggest live show in the country that pulls in hundreds of thousands, between on a low day, 200, but maybe upwards of 500K for one episode? Well, with a 2-hour show, you could probably get in 4 or 5 ad reads at 10K each. So you're looking at, for one show, selling ads upwards of $50,000. And if we do premium buys, like Adam Conover, he's a big get. A clothing company wants to sponsor it because they know people are going to want to watch.
Oh, yeah.
We go to them and say, if you want an ad read, it's 50.
Yeah.
So singular episodes could actually run as high as 250.
How's 100? But every episode of your show being worth
United
100K.
States.
Like, how is an episode? How is a 2-hour podcast of people talking worth 100K license fee? How are they going to make more than 100K on it on the other end? It sounds like a crazy number.
It's pretty standard, right? If we're doing a show that is routinely averaging the 7th biggest in the nation, when someone comes to you to make a licensing agreement, they're saying, I can make your show bigger and make more money than you could on your own. That's why Joe Rogan did the deal with Spotify. Like, how is Spotify going to make more than Joe Rogan?
This is just that's like a platform. This is like a company that's just licensing it. What were they doing with it?
They were airing it on their platform to...
their platform, just like tenetmedia.com?
No, not even on their website, just on YouTube and Rumble.
They were just they were just re-airing it on YouTube and Rumble, and it was going to be worth 100K an episode to them.
It already was generating.
Some Russian guys show up and they're like, "We will give you 100K," and you're like, this is legit.
Russia was never involved. So a conservative personality who's been in the space for a decade, who worked for the Blaze Media, said, "I've got funding for a startup. We want to license one of your shows." I licensed to Discovery. Look,
I take tons of dumb money. I've done dumb money gigs before. I'm like, I don't know why people are giving me this much money for this, but all right, if you want to do it.
I don't know if you don't have to say if you don't want to, but like, what's the biggest sponsorship you've ever gotten?
The biggest sponsorship. Okay.
Well. Oh shit. I don't know. I think I'm going to go to the golf range. So, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I might be live later. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for stopping in. This was kind of a disjointed stream. Oh, I'm gonna be back on my regular schedule again. Yeah, I don't know. I'm prepare enough for this busy day earlier today, and I got shit to do. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. And yeah, see you on